In this world, there are two types of people. One is the delusional ones who think they are number one, and two are those born knowing they could never be ordinary. And this young man was always sure he was the second type, born to be the main character, all stemming from the word ego. The truth hurts, so people seek illusions. But Singu was still engrossed in the girls on TikTok every day. He should have been a player, but for 10 years, Singu has just stayed at home. The only job Singu's mother gave him was to wake up and take out the trash. But the biggest piece of trash, which was him, was still lying in the middle of the room. Seeing he would not get up, Singu's mom peeked her head through the door. It felt like she was about to break the door down. She walked in with a steaming hot iron spoon. "My unemployed 26-year-old son is so busy today, huh? What could be more important than chores, you bum?" Singu got scared, grabbed the trash bag, and ran for his life because if he stayed another minute, the thing being thrown out would be him. On his way to take out the trash, Singu sighed. Even though his mom scolded him every day, he knew she loved him most in the world. Bang, bang. Suddenly, some rich family was setting off fireworks in broad daylight. It startled Singu. He immediately went online to check the latest news. A headline caught his eye, making him exclaim, "I knew it." 10 years ago, a strange thing suddenly appeared out of nowhere in the sky. People called it the Sky Castle. Since then, the Sky Castle has always been a hot search topic. The Sky Castle has two very strange characteristics. First, it can float in midair without any support, and second, no one can get inside it. Helicopters, drones, any flying technology. No advanced technology could land on the surface of the Sky Castle. They would just pass right through the castle. According to experts, this castle does not seem to be an illusion, but exist in a different dimension from Earth since the Sky Castle appeared. The world was in an uproar. Everyone wanted to uncover its secrets, but no one had succeeded. Until one day, those chosen by the castle were reborn as players. These players could fly with their own wings and were accepted by the castle to enter inside. The chosen ones were sent to explore the castle's grounds where countless strange monsters lurked below. There were mysterious energy traps and dungeons. A special army dedicated to conquering the Sky Castle was formed, and they were the ones who possessed special energy among the chosen. However, Singu was not one of them. The thought that 15 castles had appeared and he did not even have a single wing feather drove Singu crazy. Singu was certain that the castle system had made a mistake. If it chooses special people, then why is he still here? Even so, Singu held an ironclad belief that one day he would get his own wings, despite his mother's scolding or being dirt poor. Still, Singu knew he should find a job. He could not starve to death just waiting to become a player. A can fell from somewhere towards Singu, and he got annoyed seeing some rich brats. They were showing off a drink that could supposedly help people grow wings. The two were discussing the fireworks from when someone just cleared level 32, unaware that a bitter young man was cursing behind their backs. Singu gently dropped the can, then with all his might kicked it hard. The can shot straight into the sky like a rocket, startling the two young men. Singu watched with satisfaction, thinking that at least this can could get close to the Sky Castle. Suddenly, something fell back down, making Singu curious. He strained his eyes to see, and unexpectedly, an angel was falling. Singu could recognize that this girl was a player who had retired and been discarded by the castle, but he would not let her fall flat on her face from such a height. Singu calculated and estimated that the girl would land on this building. He immediately dashed towards that building. Ignoring the elevator, Singu ran up the stairs, kicked open the rooftop door, and saw the girl's head upside down. Singu gritted his teeth and jumped. The force from his feet shattered the floor tiles as he launched himself towards the free-falling girl. The thing is, since birth, Singu had been stronger than ordinary people without any training. When he was still in diapers, he lifted a washing machine. In school, he accidentally broke a door just because he could not control his strength. Singu's parents found a martial arts class for him to help Singu learn how to use his power, but no place could keep Singu for a month. He went to Taekwondo and punched the teacher's face in. He went to learn Japanese swordsmanship and broke all the weapons. When he tried judo, Singu lifted his master and spun him around for several minutes until the master had to retire. "Singu, my boy, you do not need to learn human skills because you are already a monster." Since then, Singu always thought he possessed a special power, and when the Sky Castle appeared, Singu thought his time had come. However, 10 years passed and he still did not have his own wings. And right at this moment, Singu was certain that this was the fateful moment of his life. No player, who retired from the castle ever survived because if an ordinary person saved a player, it was no different from suicide. But Singu was different. He was no ordinary person. The female player opened her eyes when she felt someone holding her. She was in Singu's arms and was about to say something when he told her to be quiet. Singu's 2 feet landed on the ground, but it did not stop there. The reaction force combined with gravity pressed down, making Singu grit his teeth. It seemed he had just landed in a sinkhole. Sure enough, 3 seconds later, the hole collapsed. The two of them just kept falling, not knowing when they would stop. Here. They stopped after the recent tremor and were still alive. Looking at the stammering girl in his arms, Singu spoke in a CEO-like voice. "Oh, sorry, let me put you down." The girl thanked him profusely for saving her. She herself did not think she could have survived. But where are we? Hearing this question, Singu guessed that players do not always know everything, but he also did not want to be buried alive, so he tried to find a way out. Singu stepped forward powerfully, about to throw a punch. But a sound echoed from somewhere. "Bram, Bram, the open world agent has been activated. You have been luckily chosen for the Underground Player Challenge. Clean up the White Wing Cemetery." To become an underground player, for the player girl who was just discarded by the castle, this was nothing less than a chance for revival. But when the two asked again, the cave fell silent, as if nothing had happened. Singu scratched his head, breaking the awkward atmosphere. "Maybe we should talk about this later. First, let us introduce ourselves, shall we? I am Singu." He confidently showed his personality, stating he was a 26-year-old unemployed man despite having a college degree. Contrary to her usual attitude, the girl was astonished that Singu was just a civilian. Because what normal person would be crazy enough to go to the rooftop of a building, jump high just to catch a girl and then get stuck with her in a hole of unknown depth? Faced with the girl's shock, Singu patted his bicep and winked. "I am strong, you know. I was born to be a player." The girl shook her head in disbelief. Of course, some people were born to be players, but that only happened when they received some basic elements, for example, wings to be able to fly. In short, to become a player, humans need to be supplied with mana by the Sky Castle. Singu was like a blank slate. Until now, he thought mana only existed in fantasy stories made up by crazy people. Unbelievable. The player's abilities come from magic. That is a secret. The girl signaled to Singu, then activated her divine eyes. She confirmed that Singu had absolutely no mana in his body because her insight ability was top-notch. So it could not be wrong. Singu thought for a moment. So the girl was surprised because Singu was 100% a normal person, yet had such monstrous strength. But what was so strange about that, even if humans do not have mana, they can still possess extraordinary power? The girl nodded in agreement. It is just that the appearance of players changed the concept of strength. In short, the girl had met the Superman of her life who caught her as she fell from the castle, and they both fell into an unknown place. And now they have the challenge of becoming underground players. The girl sighed. Whether they were underground or public players, she did not know, but she was certain of one thing. This place and the Sky Castle were definitely connected. The voice they just heard. It was identical to the voice players hear when they enter the Sky Castle and dungeons. Hearing this, a spark ignited in Singu's mind. Although Singu could not become a player of the Sky Castle through the front door, but he could go through the back door by using his God-given strength to conquer this mysterious place. After all that chit-chat, the girl forgot to introduce herself. "I have joined the White Wing Guild of South Korea. I am a merchant level 219. You can call me Suarin. 22 years old, younger than you." Singu's mouth twitched. How could that innocent face utter a sentence so hurtful to an old man like him? Although she was only 22, Aaron had already reached the 32nd dungeon with other members, but she was knocked out of the castle by a massive bomb attack from the boss. Aaron thought she was a goner, but she was caught in Singu's strong arms. Aaron told herself she had been given a second chance to become a player thanks to Singu, but she still thought she had actually died, because Aaron had lost all her power after that fall from mid-air. But during the process of Singu saving her, Aaron thought that some special condition had been unlocked. Singu had the potential to become an underground player, while Aaron could be reborn as a supporter. At this point, Aaron was sobbing. "I still can't believe I'm alive. I really thought I was a goner." Sob. With eyes shining like headlights, Aaron volunteered to dedicate her life to repaying Singu for saving her, which gave him goosebumps, but Aaron didn't say it without thinking, because it seemed she had been reborn as Singu's supporter if they cleared this dungeon together. Singu nodded he was fine with whatever, and Aaron obediently accepted this condition. Seeing Aaron's optimistic attitude, Singu screamed internally if he had lost all his power like Aaron, he would probably have gotten depressed. Aaron was very happy to work with him, and the two quickly became more open with each other. Singu thought a dungeon was a place full of lurking dangers, but the two of them had been chatting for a whole hour, and still hadn't been attacked by anything. Aaron was more experienced, so she knew the first room of a dungeon was a waiting room so monsters wouldn't attack players. This was a time for them to check out the dungeon, and the items they had. Welcome everyone to Teacher Aaron's lesson on dungeons. Not every dungeon is like this. This is a hidden world, and the rules of dungeons might be different from the castle, so what Aaron said might not be accurate. Aaron just kept rambling on. But Singu had already seen something that awakened the beast within him. No, I think you were right about this dungeon. In the cave ahead, growling sounds echoed along with glowing red eyes peeking out from the endless darkness. In front of them were 5 monsters with their mouths open, just waiting for them to come out to ask for a piece of meat. Instead of actively hunting, they were just waiting there. There must be some kind of rule here. Aaron seemed surprised that Singu could see inside this pitch-black cave. She guessed he had a 6th sense for those monsters. Singu was even more surprised. Was that really so unusual? Looking at Aaron's face, he knew this was definitely not normal. Only peeping Toms would have a skill for spying on people in the dark like this. With the experience of a top-tier player like Aaron, she felt she needed to be wary of Singu. But if Aaron was destined to be Singu's supporter, then she had to know what special abilities he had and from there, help him become a player. After clearing her thoughts, Aaron returned to her normal state. Ha, it's nothing. I was just surprised that you're getting used to the dungeon faster than normal. Singu laughed, of course. He had been preparing for the moment he could enter a dungeon for 10 years now. So what do we do now? Can I just charge straight at them? This time, Aaron let Singu do whatever he wanted because this dungeon was probably a competency assessment test for candidates like those universities, before becoming a player of the Sky Castle. Aaron also had to go through this type of test. Singu nodded in understanding, feeling even more interested in the 2 words test. Aaron was also worried, not knowing if in this zone the monsters had the right to kill players or not, so she had to warn Singu first. The monsters that Singu could sense from a distance meant he could handle them. Basically, there are many types of monsters. It doesn't matter about skill or talent when dealing with them. Singu could get overwhelmed, so he needed to be careful. In the meantime, Singu had begun to observe the group of monsters carefully. Then he tore a piece from the corner of his shirt and wrapped it tightly around his hand, ready for battle. Aaron was still muttering reminders for Singu to be careful because she had lost all her abilities as a healer, so Singu needed to avoid injury as much as possible. Singu cracked his knuckles, his face full of competitive spirit as if he wanted to butcher all 5 of the monsters out there. Sounds easy enough. Aaron nodded temporarily, stopping her nagging to let Singu get to work. Who knew she only looked away for 5 seconds and Singu had already shot off like an arrow. The moment he lifted his foot, he was immediately in front of the 5 monsters. Causing their jaws to drop, a wolf-like monster bared its fangs and spoke. "Grr, this human looks juicy." Aaron realized there was something unusual about this energy source. She immediately signaled for Singu to stop. "Those are werewolves. They're at level 50, but why would they appear in a test dungeon?" The werewolves had started to attack Singu. Aaron had no choice but to scream for Singu to run. She blamed herself for not calculating carefully, putting Singu in danger. A loud roar echoed. Aaron timidly opened her eyes to see if Singu had been smashed to a pulp. Who knew the thing smashed to a pulp was the werewolf's jaws, while Singu looked like he was thoroughly enjoying giving them a beatdown. Aaron was frozen in place, enjoying Singu's performance. Singu used his bare hands to rip off one werewolf's head, then punched another's face in. One werewolf lunged forward with its claws, but was sent flying into the wall by Singu. There was one last werewolf. The scene was so violent that Aaron didn't dare to open her eyes. The last werewolf was also done for. Singu confidently dusted off his hands. "Why did you tell me to stop earlier?" asked back. Aaron hesitated. She didn't think Singu would be that intense. Aaron cleared her throat, preparing to explain something even more important after defeating the monsters which was looting them. All the monsters they encountered in the dungeon carried some kind of treasure with them. Singu simply needed to take it, but he had to remember one thing: only those who contributed the most to defeating the monster had the right to loot it. Singu gently flexed, "But I was the only one who killed them." Aaron nodded. setting this case aside. Usually there are two types of treasures dropped from monsters. One is money and the other is a type of stone that can grant mana abilities, specifically a monster's seed. But Singu was only interested in the money, not knowing if it was calculated in won or dollars. Aaron confirmed that the dropped money would be based on the USD exchange rate. Singu was stunned. No wonder players drive fancy cars and live in mansions. Aaron coughed dryly. There are people with wings and people with the power of superheroes. So it's not strange for monsters to carry money with them. Stop arguing about money because the monsters sometimes even carry a solid gold nugget with them. But it's very rare to encounter it. Singu found it strange. Because wouldn't money dropping from a monster's corpse cause inflation? Exchange rates, serial numbers? These things all gave Singu a headache, but Aaron advised him to just turn a blind eye because the thing Singu needed to care about was the monster's seed, because it was more valuable than that money. You could say it's priceless. Players throw the seed into an altar that appears after clearing a dungeon, and they will receive a valuable reward. Simply put, it's an exchange for in-game items like weapon shields or other equipment. Singu had to admire Aaron's incredibly easy-to-understand explanation. Even though she had a lot of experience, it felt like Singu was reading a player's guide. Also, Singu could exchange one or more types of seeds at the same time, but he couldn't play tricks on the altar because it only gives out a reward, based on the value of the seed that Singu threw in. The explanation had reached this point, but Singu still wasn't interested in those seeds. The thing he cared about now was the altar that would appear after conquering this dungeon. So it doesn't want the people inside to get stronger in the process. Is that it? Aaron nodded. Although she didn't want to, she had to admit this harsh reality. The more she interacted with Singu, the more Aaron felt he was exactly her type. Handsome, super strong, and smart, too. Getting back to the explanation, their starting point was a test dungeon. So they wouldn't get anything from the dungeon, neither rewards nor level-ups. No matter how many monsters Singu defeated, it wouldn't help him gain any skills. Only when he entered a real dungeon could Singu level up after clearing it and meeting the altar. Singu started thinking again. Previously, Aaron was at level 219 from mana, strength, and many other stats that make up a player. If a player doesn't have a high level, they can't enter high-level dungeons. Aaron didn't think she needed to explain how to level up anymore, because the only way to get stronger is by proving oneself. Many players were slow to understand this, so they saw the Sky Castle as nothing more than a game they used to play all night at internet cafes. The dungeons were no different from a test, and the players would not be acknowledged. By just answering one question at a time, of course, these kinds of players would not last long in the castle just thinking about the monsters. If he thought of them as part of the dungeon, Singu would find it easier to understand. At this point, Singu asked Aaron back, "So what is the most important way to loot items?" Aaron continued her explanation. "Looting money is too simple. Singu just needs to land the finishing blow on the enemy. This is called a cash grab." Singu warmed up his shoulder joints. The werewolf's skull exploded when he used his fist, and so Singu tapped it lightly to finish the werewolf off. And a stack of dollar bills flew out. Singu held the stack in his hand, each a $100 bill, but it appeared in a test dungeon while this amount of money was equivalent to the price of snow currency at the castle. Who would complain? Singu quickly stuffed the money into his pants pocket and moved on to collecting those seeds. Aaron sighed. It is best not to think too much about it. Just face it head on. After Singu took the money, the monsters without seeds would return to dust absorbed by the dungeon. But almost all the monsters had seeds, so Singu did not have to worry about this issue. However, the way to get the seeds was different from getting money. Singu had to land a finishing blow on the monster's body. Singu was surprised even looting requires effort. Wait a minute. Does that not mean I will not get anything if I do not destroy their bodies? Or let the other guys lose out too? Aaron nodded. Talking to a big-brain person really saves effort. Singu snickered. If he did not distribute his power correctly, then he would not be able to get the treasure. This is getting more and more interesting. That means Singu could not waste his strength on collecting treasure if he wanted to clear the stage easily. I do not know what bastard created such an arrogant system. All right, then, watch this. Singu suddenly grabbed a werewolf's two legs in a suggestive pose, flashing a sinister smile. If this dungeon wants to challenge me, then bring it on. Singu piled up the werewolf corpses into a mountain, then stomped his feet and jumped high, free-falling. The force of Singu's fall created a gust of wind so strong that Aaron could not hold down the hem of her skirt. She rubbed her dust-filled eyes. I bet Singu will destroy all the seeds, but no way that was happening. A pile of seeds fell out after that impact. It turns out Singu gathered a pile of corpses to do it all in one go to save energy. Aaron had seen players loot items with magic before, but she had never seen anyone stomp them flat. Singu felt proud of his own intelligence. He thought with this he would be able to get into the real experience. The real thing, but no. There are a few specific actions that Singu was required to do after clearing a stage. First was to check if he had lost any flesh or bone. Check the back and front of the room and check his strength and mana. Singu scratched his head. Other than the sleeve he had torn off to make a glove, there was not a single scratch on his whole body. Aaron sighed wearily and continued walking with Singu because they did not know where this dungeon ended. So Aaron always reminded Singu to be very careful, but the truth was, the monsters in the dungeon were the ones who needed to be wary of Singu. Wherever he went, he swept through. He even created a special attack just for werewolves. Unsurprisingly, every single one of them had a plump seed. Aaron gave a forced smile because she was no longer surprised. Singu had just butchered 140 werewolves in just 3 hours. Have you ever studied any martial arts? Singu said, well, just the basic ones like Taekwondo, Hapkido, Judo, and Kendo. 4 terrifying disciplines were just basic in Singu's eyes, leaving Aaron speechless. He did not even learn them to get stronger, but to become less strong. At a godlike speed, they finally reached the boss room of the Wyvern Graveyard Guardian. Aaron took a deep breath and told Singu to check his strength and mana again before entering this room. For example, preparing mentally and reciting some incantations. But in Singu's case, Aaron did not know what he should prepare for since Singu did not even have any mana. And using incantations. In general, that is true for normal players. Besides that, bosses also have 3 seconds where they do not pay attention to the player. Hearing the phrase, not being noticed. A thought flashed through Singu's mind. It meant he just had to strike within those 3 seconds to defeat the boss. Too easy. Aaron broke into a sweat because bosses do not always just wait around. When the door opens for the player to see. But of course these words did not register with Singu. The boss would be of the same race as the monsters they had encountered in the dungeon before. In this dungeon it is werewolves, so the boss will also be a werewolf, but it will be the strongest among the werewolves here. However, Aaron was afraid the boss would be over level 100. What kind of monsters did this dungeon choose? They are so out of our league. However, Singu was not the least bit afraid. He was confident he could take down the boss with this Saitama punch. All right, let us open the door, Aaron sighed. Even if the sky were falling, Singu would probably still maintain this innocently optimistic attitude. She pushed the door open, feeling the same nervous fear as the first time entering a boss room. Even though a player could not be killed in the trial test, the suffocating feeling this room gave off was still real. Aaron pushed aside her negative thoughts because Singu had to pass this test. Some people could return to their normal lives after failing the first test, but she did not know what would happen if a candidate could not clear the world stage. This Anzen, even if Singu failed. Aaron hoped they could return and escape this dungeon. But what if they could not, and Aaron failed her mission as a guardian? With the responsibility on her shoulders, Aaron felt more afraid than anyone because everything had been going so smoothly, just like a dream. Here it comes, thanks. Singu suddenly said that, startling Aaron. The door had been open for who knows how long while she just stood there dumbfounded. A huge mouth with a set of strong teeth lunged out. Aaron fell to the ground, her 2 legs trembling and her face pale. That is a level 100 giant dire werewolf. The dire werewolf was drooling as if it had rabies. While Aaron was still muttering, no way, Singu had already charged forward. Compared to the boss, Singu was no different from a mosquito, but he was trying to take advantage of the first 3 seconds. Singu jumped very high, facing the dire werewolf. He shouted loudly, I can fly, woohoo! Then Singu threw a powerful punch and landed with the black werewolf's eyeball in his hand, juggling it like a ball. So I can take a part of its body mid-fight, huh? Do not let your guard down. The monster only disappears when you kill it. Aaron anxiously warned Singu. The black werewolf, furious, charged forward, seeking revenge. Singu got into a pitching stance, holding the werewolf's eyeball like a baseball. Singu twisted his body and threw the eye back at the werewolf. The werewolf clutched its 2 eyes, howling in pain. Aaron's eyes widened in astonishment, wondering how Singu could time his attack so perfectly. Oh, was that not a perfect throw? Singu's clueless boasting of his achievement annoyed Aaron, although the boss's 2 eyes were ruined. But its nose was the real problem, because this canine species smells better than it sees. Not only that, but it is also a level 100 monster. The first 3 seconds have passed. Now the real battle begins. The werewolf indeed still found Singu's position despite losing its eyes. Singu sighed. This scene was no different from when his mom used her legendary slipperfoo. "Hey, you will die if you just stand there. Hurry up and run!" Erin flapped her wings in fear while Singu, of course, did not know how to fly. Luckily, his nimble legs helped Singu jump like a frog, dodging the werewolf's pounce in the meantime. Singu was looking for a way to deal with the werewolf's keen nose. Thinking about scent, Singu had an idea. He took off his shirt, revealing a fit body with gleaming, toned muscles. Erin was confused, but also did not dare to look directly at him. "What the hell are you doing? We have to prepare for the next attack. Calm down and watch this," Singu said, then rolled his shirt into a ball in his hand and threw it towards the black werewolf. If the boss was not stupid, this trick would not work. But the werewolf immediately ran towards the shirt by instinct. Making Singu delighted, "Oh, I am so smart. What should I do with all this intelligence?" Suarin gave a wry smile. It was simply because Singu had no mana in his body that the monsters were not sensitive to him. After the werewolf saw the shirt had stopped, it froze with a blank face. Singu took this opportunity to use both feet to kick hard at the werewolf's knee joints. Crack, crack. The sound of bones crunching and shattering was accompanied by the werewolf's roar. Singu sighed. He thought it would be tougher, but this boss's bones were more brittle than he imagined. Singu even considered taking off his pants. If the last trick had not worked, now the werewolf could no longer chase Singu, so he began to play with it. Each cracking sound echoed along with the werewolf's pathetic cries. Erin watched, even feeling sorry for its fate for having met Singu. In the end, the giant dire werewolf was defeated. Singu got 15 $100 bills and a black seed. Erin's face fell. She could not believe that she would one day witness a commoner with no skills take down a level 100 monster so easily. Beep, beep! A series of notifications suddenly appeared. Singu had completed the trial and his account was activated. A golden panel showed up. Singu's dungeon clear time was over 3 hours. With 150 werewolves and 1 boss, this is the basic interface that every player has. It also allows Singu to see how many players there are in the Sky Castle. Moreover, it didn't obstruct the player's vision, so Singu didn't have to worry because he could still see Erin. Singu asked in confusion, "So does that mean I've completed the trial?" "That's right, and now you're a real player." Hearing this, Singu celebrated joyfully. This was a dream he had for 10 years that he had finally achieved. Erin wasn't so sure, though, because this was Anza, not the Sky Castle. Everything had been different from the very beginning. Ping, a notification appeared from the interface. Additional reward, unlocked skill ignorant, but brave. Singu's face went blank. The first skill he obtained had a name that was like a slap in Singu's face. "Let me ask again, are they the special magic crystals I get from clearing stages, hunting special monsters, or fulfilling certain conditions?" That's right, Erin further explained. They can support certain actions or open up new senses, all of which are useful for conquering this dungeon. Singu nodded and then asked, "So is there a skill named Ignorant but Brave?" Erin was confused. She had never heard of that name, but to encourage Singu, she acted extremely excited. "Is it a one-of-a-kind, unique skill? Maybe you're the only person in the world who possesses this skill." "There you go." Singu's ears twitched because he couldn't keep up with Erin's speaking speed. This girl couldn't stay quiet for even 3 seconds. The screen lit up again. The interface announced that Singu had become an underground player and obtained the underground player exclusive skill Chaotic Tail. Inventory unlocked and level increased by 9. A sudden electric current flowed through both Singu and Erin's bodies, making them convulse. Erin was surprised that she also received a reward. Even though she had only given Singu some advice and guidance, meanwhile Singu was gritting his teeth, enduring the first pain he had ever felt in his life. It felt even more painful than a slap from his mom. "That's because the mana and energy that make up the dungeon have entered your body and are changing it," Erin managed to explain to Singu even as she was being electrocuted. To put it simply, mana seeds are being implanted into every one of Singu's cells and are starting to grow his muscles, expelling all the impurities from his body before he had mana. Of course, mana also helped Singu increase his strength, a change so obvious that even an outsider could see the difference. The specific stats were now available. Singu was at level 10. He felt his body falling, but when Singu landed, he had 3 legs. Singu was startled, thinking his middle leg had grown longer, but no. Singu had grown a super long tail on his back. Singu wagged the tail. Fuck, why not a pair of wings, but instead, a rough, ugly tail like a lizard's. The interface showed that this was the chaotic tail of the underground player it had mentioned. The tail helps Singu dig deep into Anzen and can be used for attack and defense as a part of his body. The higher its level, the stronger and more transformed the tail becomes. Shingu's trembling hands grabbed the new part of his body. What the hell, using a shovel would be faster. Suddenly, Singu fell silent in thought. If players could enter the sky castle with wings, then perhaps this tail also had some similar functions. To get into Anzen, Singu had caught a player who fell from the sky castle. When he completed the trial, it gave him a key for easy entry and exit. Singu had no idea who created this godforsaken cave. But that person must be very cunning. If Singu ever met them, he would definitely let them know what it feels like to grow a tail as he got used to his tail. Singu continued to use the interface to ask about his second skill. Ignorant but brave, Singu becomes braver when unaware of impending danger. This skill helps him reduce damage from ambushes by half. He can never receive a fatal wound from traps or skills he is unaware of. Singu nodded, even though the name sounded a bit lame. He liked its effect. Suarin, what do you think about? Singu turned around but couldn't see Aaron anymore, but he heard a sniffling sound at his feet. Singu instinctively looked down to see that Aaron had been turned into a tiny person. Aaron forced a painful smile. So this is the price a supporter pays. Even though I've become tiny, I'm still alive, so I won't complain. Aaron spoke while fighting back tears. Singu understood that while he was now soaring high, someone like Aaron had fallen into an abyss. From a level 219 player, Aaron was now only level 3. Having lost all her mana and levels, she looked just like a fairy from a storybook. Singu scratched his head and looked away. It's pretty dark in here. You know, if you cry, I won't be able to see it. Aaron cried loudly to release her sadness. Then she returned to her usual self. Aaron was still very grateful to Singu for saving her life, but because she was embarrassed, she wouldn't mention what just happened again. Anyway, I'll still try to help you as much as possible. Maybe by doing so, I can get my original body back. Singu nodded. At least Aaron now had a purpose. The two of them quickly moved on from the topic. Moving on to Shingu's current status, Aaron led him to a place they had always been curious about: the altar. The two stopped before a golden altar bathed in a dazzling light. Before they began, Aaron briefly explained that with under 10 seeds, you could only get a few vials of skin serum or a map, but with over 10 seeds, you could obtain equipment like weapons. And armor, of course. The more seeds you use, the better the quality of the item. In some cases, players could even obtain items with special energy. Of course, you can't get the really good stuff from a test dungeon. Singu thought about these items. Potions and maps would help Singu during his dungeon exploration, and Aaron's energy could heal him now too. Is there a limit to the number of seeds? Aaron shook her head. She had never thought about this. Who knows what dark scheme Singu was plotting as his eyes gleamed. No limit, are you sure? Aaron felt like she had just handed a weapon to the enemy and hurriedly tried to stop him, but it was too late. Singu poured his entire pile of seeds into the altar before Aaron's stunned face. Aaron screamed. Her scream echoed, belying her tiny form. What do you think you're doing? Singu had just become a player, but he couldn't enter the Sky Castle to get supplies, yet he wasted all his seeds in a single use. Singu asked naively, but can't you heal me? Isn't that enough? Anyway, it was already too late. The altar had accepted Singu's seeds and started to activate. Aaron shut her eyes tightly and prayed, please let it be at least a piece of iron armor. Something that could protect Singu's weak points. Singu couldn't understand why she was taking it so seriously. He could just buy armor before entering a dungeon. Right. As an experienced player, Aaron knew that was impossible, otherwise she wouldn't have been freaking out like this. Aaron needed to remind Singu that items sold in the market couldn't be used in dungeons, from firearms and wireless devices to melee weapons and other equipment. Made with their modern technology, were all ineffective. Singu was starting to think this was complicated. But anyway, this was just a test dungeon. He was sure that seeds from an entry-level dungeon wouldn't be very valuable for subsequent dungeons anyway. Singu would rather use them all to get one useful piece of equipment than save them. Aaron thought it made sense, but that only applied to the Sky Castle. But this was Anzen, and they had no idea what could happen, although Aaron knew that ever since Singu decided to catch her as she fell from the sky, he had been living a life. There's no direction or plan at all. After all, his skill was ignorant but brave. Right, what did you just say? Singu asked, irritably annoyed by the name of his one-of-a-kind skill. But according to Aaron, the monsters in this test were already stronger than those in the Sky Castle. So it was possible that using just a few seeds could have yielded a good item. Singu thought differently. If the test was already this difficult, then how hard would the level 1 dungeons be? Erin was at a loss for words, because she had never considered that the test already had werewolves. So the monsters in the next dungeon will definitely be even stronger. Erin was impressed with Singu's reasoning. Did you think all this through before you threw in the seeds? Of course not. I just wanted the best item. Erin clutched her aching head. Sometimes she found Singu to be brilliant, but other times he was dumber than an ox. But through this, Erin understood why she had to be Singu's supporter. Besides educating his mindset and training him to be a player, Erin also had to curb Singu's impulsiveness. In every situation, if Erin did this role well, perhaps Singu could have become as strong as the world's #1 players, and if his mana and innate power harmonized, he might even become the best player in the world. Of course, this scenario only played out in Erin's head, because if she told Singu, he would definitely nag her to death about it. "Hey, Erin, something super huge is about to appear." Singu's anxious voice echoed in Erin's ears. When she turned around, the altar had somehow become XXL-sized. Singu pointed at it with an expectant look, certain that an incredibly overpowered and cool item would drop. The moment had finally arrived. A massive sledgehammer appeared. Singu grabbed it, and the interface exploded with information. The sledgehammer was named the Dark Wolf's Claw. Rank D++. It contained the unrivaled power of a black wolf's foreclaw, but was very difficult to wield due to its weight. Singu lifted the hammer as if it were made of wood. He even spun it around a few times like Sun Wukong's staff. Singu didn't know much about its effects, but it looked cool as hell, so he liked it a lot. Erin paid more attention to its D rank. D rank weapons were for players from level 100 to 150. The more plus signs it had, the rarer it was, meaning Singu could use this sledgehammer until he reached level 150. If he was lucky, it might even be better than some common C rank weapons. C rank, what did you say? Come a little closer. Singu asked again blankly, which annoyed Erin. It was just that she was afraid he would swing the sledgehammer and hit a fly like her. Besides, on the sledgehammer, there was also a huge yellow question mark representing its stats. Only after Singu used it a lot and got used to the hammer would he be able to fully grasp its capabilities. But if Singu couldn't wait, he could also use the interface's information lookup function. Oh, that's right. Should I introduce you to a player with appraisal skills? Singu shook his head and declined. With 15 years of grinding experience, revealing himself now could bring trouble for Singu. He had always been treated differently just because of his power. If they found out now that Singu was an underground player, how would they react? At the very least, Singu wanted to maintain his freedom to use his power. Even though Singu was very confident in his strength compared to the veteran players of the world, he was severely lacking in experience. So Singu reminded Erin to keep this a secret until the time was right. Erin nodded, partly because she was too excited, thinking she was about to have the most badass disciple ever. "All right, Singu. If you wish, I will help you stay hidden," Erin declared boldly, also telling herself that from now on she would strive to be Singu's greatest supporter. First, Erin would teach Singu how to hide his wings. "His wings, are you sure?" I mean your tail." Erin cleared her throat, regaining her composure. Whether it's wings or a tail, they operate on the same mechanism. To hide it, Singu just needed to envelop it with mana and then tuck it into his body. Thinking of mana, Singu recalled the strange energy he felt when he became a player. But anyway, Singu had to try it. Erin had pointed to her chest when she thought about her wings. In the case of Singu's tail, everyone knows where he would have to point. Poof, the tail vanished, but after 3 seconds it popped out of his pants again. Singu tried again. Every time he strained to point at his butt, the tail would disappear, but when he took his hand away, it would drop down again. Erin face-palmed in embarrassment. The path to training a #1 server disciple was so difficult. Anyway, all Erin could do was offer advice. It wasn't strange that Singu couldn't get it right on the first try, but even so, Erin was still greatly looking forward to Singu's transformation to see how he would progress in the future. After a few minutes of trial and error, Singu finally managed to tuck the tail inside, without ripping his pants. The second lesson was about the inventory, something every player has. An inventory. As soon as Singu said that, a transparent cube appeared in his hand. It even started growing larger, causing Singu to lose control. It was a good thing that inventories were also given to underground players. Singu could put anything inside it, even his phone and food. Of course, the space would have its limits. Singu was excited. Now this was starting to feel like a role-playing game. Singu tried putting his 1,000-pound sledgehammer into the inventory. Gulpit swallowed it, and now the hammer appeared like an icon on a phone. Everything was simpler than Singu thought, so he got used to it very quickly. There were two things Aaron wanted to remind Singu. As long as he remembered them, he could blend in anywhere to the point of dissolving into the crowd. Of course. Except if Singu ran into players who were sensitive to mana, everything would be fine. Suddenly, the altar lit up and something appeared next to it. It looked like a portal. Singu felt as if it were calling him. That's right, I told you it was user-friendly. Aaron confirmed that it was the dungeon gate from the Sky Castle. It seemed they could leave this place through that gate. Before stepping through, Singu hoped that when he returned, his body would still have these tattered clothes on it. Back on the surface, the sky had darkened. Singu ran like the wind, hiding somewhere and breathing a sigh of relief. Since it was nighttime, there was no one around. Aaron, don't you need to call your parents? Aaron smiled faintly. Since her parents passed away, Aaron had lived alone. She had nothing to do when she got home. Singu, on the other hand, thought it was amazing that Aaron owned her own house at such a young age. Players really do earn money on a different level. Singu told Aaron to hide in his pocket until he got to his room. The house door was slightly ajar. Singu tiptoed inside. Reaching his room's door, Singu was about to let out a sigh of relief when a hair-raising voice rang out. "My darling son, you've finally decided to come home, have you?" Singu cried out. He knew he couldn't escape his mom's radar. Smack Shingu's mom slammed her hand on his back, leaving a 5-fingered print on his shirt. She was furious about Shingu's traceless disappearance, especially when those orange-clad thugs out there were kidnapping people so easily. This kid. Do you want your mother to see you on the front page or something? His mother's scolding felt like it would burst his eardrums. Finally, she let out a tired sigh. Go take a shower. Are you hungry? As his mom went to cook dinner, Singu returned to his room. Aaron immediately popped out, eager for gossip. She couldn't understand how Singu was still in one piece after disappearing for a few days. Haven't you heard the old saying, with great power comes great responsibility? So you've caused quite a bit of trouble then, haven't you, Singu? You're 26 years old. Aaron's words were like a direct punch to Shingu's face. If he hadn't become a player, Singu would probably be worth less than a blade of grass on the street right now. While going to shower, Singu told Aaron to keep quiet. Oh, but what about your dinner? Singu opened his snack drawer and gave Aaron a protein bar. Gulp, it's too big. Aaron refused immediately. That protein bar could probably crush her to death. Singu used a skill to chop it in half and gave it to Aaron. The sight of her holding the piece and eating was so lively that Singu couldn't take his eyes off her. Aaron nibbled away at almost the entire protein bar. Her belly was round and full. When Singu finished his shower and saw this, he was at a loss for words, not knowing whether to be happy or sad. Feeding Aaron 3 meals a day would only cost 3 energy bars. As soon as she was full, Aaron was full of spirit. She immediately got to work wanting to draw up a plan for Singu, leaving him helpless. It seemed this girl didn't want to let him rest sometimes, but Aaron was also very impatient. Because she thought the stronger Singu became, the easier it would be for her to regain her old body. Sir Singu, I hope you can focus a little. Becoming a player is your lifelong dream, isn't it? And are you willing to dedicate your time to dungeons? Of course. Speaking of dungeons, Singu's spirits lifted. There was nothing more important than conquering dungeons. After all, he was unemployed. Even if Singu didn't have wings, and his conquest of the underground world might not be recognized as long as Singu's power increased, Aaron would be happy. As for Aaron, she couldn't help much, but she could feel the burning fire within Singu. Before starting to conquer a rank 1 dungeon, Aaron needed them to do a few things. A player who can't complete the trial dungeon is lacking in many things. Specifically, they're lacking pretty much everything. Not only can they not connect to the flow of mana in their inventory, more importantly, they don't have wings. Having wings is a huge advantage in all situations. In most dungeons, monsters can't fly, so they lack mobility, compared to players equipped with wings. That's why players often choose easy dungeons to learn how to control mana and face the least risk of injury. Singu listened and thought it made sense. Except for the fact that he had a tail, not wings. Just calm down, I haven't gotten to that part yet. Aaron signaled that a rank 1 dungeon was on a whole other level compared to the trial dungeon. The monsters would start being able to use their mana. Wait a minute, didn't the werewolves? In the trial dungeon also use mana, Shingu's question annoyed Arin because she was just speaking based on the theories from the Sky Castle, and forgot that things were completely different in Anzen. In short, Arin just wanted to say that the monsters in a regular dungeon would be much stronger than those in the trial, which is why many new players spend months learning how to use mana and even how to combine weapons and mana. Even so, completing a rank 1 dungeon usually requires 10 well-trained players. To find other players, they usually form parties or run into each other. Singu pouted. An underground player like him, where was he supposed to find teammates? Anyway, you need to listen to the main point I'm making, Arin sighed. Just because you're an official player now, Singu doesn't mean you can clear a dungeon by yourself. Level 1. First, they need to develop Singu's skills and mana usage. Even so, Arin knew that even without mana, Singu's monstrous strength was enough to dominate the trial dungeon. He wouldn't even need to learn how to use mana before battle, but because Arin wasn't sure about the monsters in Agen, she couldn't take the risk. It was best for Singu to be in top condition to minimize any risks. Along with that, Arin would plan for Singu to learn basic mana, even though starting from 0 would be extremely difficult. But as long as Singu's mana control skill improved, he would get his first skill, the mana kick. Singu's first goal was this very kick. He felt like this move would cause an explosion like a cannon blast from a robot with tremendous energy. Just thinking about it made Singu jump to his feet excitedly. All right, I'll practice until I can do it. Singu was ready to work hard under Arin's guidance. He believed she could make him capable of conquering the Level 1 dungeon. Although Singu's attitude was very cooperative, Arin was worried because it would probably take a lot of time and effort to train him, especially a musclehead like him. It would be too easy to just teach Singu to control his power just enough to clear a dungeon which could lead to his downfall, but looking at his potential, she was sure he was special, more than any player she had ever met. Arin couldn't apply the theories and methods meant for the players in the Sky Castle, but she believed that if she passed on her experience to Singu, he would become insanely strong. His growth rate would even be faster than anyone else's. To Arin, this was just like a character training game. It was incredibly interesting, but training goes hand in hand with rest. Arin allowed Singu to go to sleep. Singu looked at his single bed, wondering where Arin was supposed to sleep. With Arin's tiny body, he couldn't even imagine where she would bathe. So the two of them went to the supermarket and bought a dollhouse. Singu was stunned by the price. Not only that, but the supermarket employee also gave him a strange look. For your daughter, I'm sure your niece will love it. After getting the new house, Singu went downstairs to watch TV to let Arin bathe in peace. She couldn't believe the day had come when she had to bathe in a toy bathtub for a Barbie doll, but it was more comfortable than she thought. All she needed was some peace and quiet to soak in a tub like this. No matter how much noise there was outside, wait, was that a noise? Singu suddenly burst through the door, holding his phone, and rushed in. Arin, we're screwed! Arin's two eyes stared intently at Singu. In short, the news just reported that Arin had died. So many people came to cry at her funeral. It was unbelievable. The day had come when Arin was watching a live stream of her own funeral. Singu sighed. Arin's passing was a great loss for the player community in general and the White Wings Guild in particular. Perhaps the guild will cease its activities for a while due to Arin's absence. It was through the news that Singu learned Arin was an idol in the player world, not just because of her heavenly beauty, but also because of her role on the team. Arin sighed. They only say that because healer-type players are extremely rare. For example, in a game, a character who can both heal others and contribute their all is already a rare find. If Singu could successfully conquer a level 10 dungeon, he could obtain the healer class as a reward. Hearing this, Singu was surprised. It turns out Arin had to clear a dungeon to get that healing ability. Arin's expression darkened. In reality, a player's level isn't what's truly important. What matters is whether they can conquer the dungeons. There are two common scenarios in the process of obtaining healing abilities. The first is the player's level, and the second is dungeon conquest, if a player doesn't complete a level 2 dungeon. They can't advance to a level 3 dungeon. In reality, some players limit themselves to low-level dungeons because they're afraid of the high-level ones. So even if their level is very high, if they lack the skills, they won't have a chance to achieve their class. Singu nodded. He understood their fear, because Arin had almost died in the real world if Singu hadn't saved her. Until now, the only thing Singu had done was smash everything in his path without ever using a skill or thinking before acting. But that was only possible because Singu had superhuman strength, so nothing seemed to threaten his life. But what if there was a wall that Singu couldn't break down? What then? Would he end up like the other players who give up after a little difficulty, or would he die like Aran Singu chuckled? Why did he have to think so much? Singu would just overcome that wall when it appeared. That was enough. And are you sure you're okay with the current situation? Aran was taken aback when Singu mentioned her funeral. Aran had always said that no one cared about her, and the people at her funeral were all her classmates, or players who had been on the same team with Aran for a few years. Except for the fact that most of them were men, everyone looked haggard and devastated. It seemed like they genuinely cared about Aran, not just because she was a player, but because of who she was as a person. Aran shivered and sighed. She guessed most of them were just lost souls who came to her for a bit of money. It was better for her not to meet them, but it seemed Aran didn't want to talk about herself, so she went back to training Singu, making it tough for him. A few minutes later, Singu was panting like a bull due to Aran's strictness. At 12 o'clock at night, Singu had to lift two 12-kilogram weights, even though lifting weights seemed easy for him. But the exercise he was doing was meant to circulate the mana in his body. It was called internal power enhancement. To think that Singu couldn't even lift a single weight, it was the most ridiculous thing in his life. All weapons need mana to enhance their power. Even the simplest things need to have mana inside them. That's because mana has the ability to strengthen anything it passes through. You've experienced this before, too. Remember before when you felt that extreme shock? That was when mana flowed into every cell of your body. At that moment, didn't you feel as powerful as a god? Didn't you feel like you could lift the entire world? Singu frowned. So it wasn't a dream. Although the mana kick was their current goal, there was a reason why. Aran needed him to focus on mana reinforcement because it's the next step after the kick, helping to amplify the released power. So you mean, I can create an explosion like a Kamehameha after using mana, right? Aran sighed. It wasn't exactly right, but it was an easy way for Singu to visualize it since he used a sledgehammer as his mana weapon. The inherent mana inside it will be activated at a certain speed. When you swing the weapon at an enemy, the weapon's internal mana will increase its speed and acceleration, helping to create more damage. Thinking about speed and acceleration, Singu thought it would be better to just focus on his own strength. Why focus on mana when the weapon already had mana in it? As long as he swung the sledgehammer fast enough, he could score a home run on the enemy, and that would be fine. Looking at Singu's delighted expression, Aran felt like she could read his every thought. So Aran had to say it. Most new players only focus on the mana kick and forget to amplify their mana, and that's why Aran wanted Singu to focus on mana reinforcement first and then the kick, because most players did it wrong. If you want to know why it's right or wrong, Singu, you need to think multidimensionally instead of just swinging your weapon rigidly. With its available mana, it would be easier if Singu infused a little of his own mana to enhance the process, but this strategy has its drawbacks. Because you're focusing on your own mana while using the weapon, it's very easy to lose the accuracy of your attack. That's why high-level players are always faster at learning how to control the movement of internal mana. These things can only be achieved if you are hard-working, diligent, and patient. Hearing this, Singu's head felt clear. This means I can't use it right away. Why, Singu puffed out his chest. I already know how to move mana throughout my body. Aran was annoyed by Singu's immaturity, but if he wanted to put himself at unnecessary risk just because he didn't study carefully, she wouldn't care. Although thinking about it gave Aran a headache, they could start by mastering the 3 conditions for the mana kick. I believe you can do it. Singu sighed. He had been convinced by Aran in just one sentence. Returning to the topic of weapons, Singu wondered if there was anything that didn't have its own internal mana. If I put some mana into these 2 weights, could they turn into weapons? If you did, the weight's power would increase a little, but not enough. Not only that, it would also cost you mana if you don't have much to spare. What if I put mana into my hands and feet and use them as weapons? Singu's question left Aran speechless. In theory, you could increase the power of your physical attacks, but it would also cause your body to suffer pain. But thinking about it, Aran guessed that Singu probably only needed his fists to be sufficient. Many high-level players use this tactic in the final stages. Instead of using weapons, they focus on channeling mana throughout their bodies. Singu didn't quite get it, so he decided to just do it. All you have to do is generate mana and distribute it throughout your body, right? If Singu put 1 billion mana into this dumbbell and threw it hard at the ground, it would surely create a massive explosion. Just watch, he never expected this idea to be approved by Aran players who use long-range weapons like bows or spears. often use the strategy that Singu just came up with, but that method also requires caution, especially when Singu throws the weapon. The mana surrounding the weapon will gradually detach, and if the distance is too great, the mana will slowly disappear, and the weapon will become useless. It's just like when it lacks enough mana to create an explosion after hitting the target. After hearing that, Singu felt like his brain couldn't take it anymore, so he had to listen to Suarin and practice slowly but surely everything would fall into place. Although the pace seemed slow, Singu still found joy in the process. He had waited 15 years to become a player, and Singu wouldn't let it disappear. Singu would show the whole world who the real main character is, because after all, Singu wouldn't fall into a deeper abyss, because he was already at the bottom. The only way was up at the current intensity. It wasn't difficult for Singu, but his control wasn't very smooth yet every time Singu tried to infuse mana into a specific spot on the dumbbell. He always missed the target by 1 or 2 centimeters, but Singu was sure he could do it. After all, this was what he wanted, of course, except for the fact that he now had a tail dangling behind him. Erin really wanted to help with Singu's tail, but she had never met anyone with a tail before. After thinking for 5 seconds, Erin came up with an idea. "Oh, how about you wag your tail every time you see me?" Singu laughed. "I thought you were going to give me some useful advice. Do you think I'm a dog or something?" Erin got annoyed and pinched Singu's cheek with all her might for underestimating her. Just then, his phone buzzed with news of a young man claiming to be Erin's fiance. Kim Haryang, the leader of the Winter Spa Guild, suddenly announced that Erin might still be alive. Singu and Erin froze, not because of the news that she was alive, but because of the news that Erin was engaged. Singu was extremely surprised to see the latest news broadcasting live and tried to process what he had just heard. Erin, seeing her name in the big headline, also blushed shyly and stammered speechless. Then, as if by telepathy, they both shouted in shock, engaged. When interviewed, Haryang stated firmly, according to Kim Haryang, the Guardian Stone inside the Celestial City does not have Erin's name on it, and he will mobilize all the guild's resources to find her. No matter what, the two listened intently to every word he said. Other players also confirmed Erin's name was not on the Guardian Stone, and this incident had become more serious, especially at this point in time. Singu didn't know much about the game, so he wondered about the Guardian Stone. Erin immediately explained in detail that it is a memorial stele that automatically records the names of deceased players. No one could take a picture of it because the Celestial City doesn't allow the use of modern technology, but it seemed Erin's focus was a bit off. "But he's not my fiancé. He's just bluffing." No one said anything. No one even brought it up, but she rushed to explain. "I can't be in love with anyone because I'm busy conquering dungeons, you know. So please don't get the wrong idea about me, okay?" Singu looked a bit awkward, not understanding, and scratched his cheek. Not at all. The Guardian Stone is the real issue. Suddenly, his expression turned serious, sensing that the coming days would not be peaceful. "I have a feeling this will cause a lot of trouble for me later." The conversation ended. After a while, it seemed they had gradually forgotten about that news. Singu was walking and thinking about something, looking very happy. Then he turned to start a conversation with Erin. 2 weeks have passed in a flash. She also asked him about his training lately. "Yes, let's see what you got." Singu excitedly showed off the achievements he had made. "I learned 2 passive skills by being an unauthorized player in the tutorial dungeon. One is called Chaotic Tail, which proves I'm an unauthorized player. I know it's a bit mean, but Erin couldn't help but tease him. The other skill is Hey He, the Indifference skill, which is the courage that makes me braver hearing this." Singu looked as if he'd been hit by Diao-chan's second skill, his face long and dejected. Taking this opportunity, he asked back, "You must have gotten some things of your own as a support, right?" Erin was very willing to share. "Yes, I got 2 active skills." She twirled, showing off a bit of her skill, and said, "The first is a skill that uses mana to let me return to my old body, the Savior's body. That skill increases the power of all my abilities, but in return it consumes a lot of mana." She was proud of the ability she had received. "The second skill is for hiding invisibility." Singu tried to widen his eyes and stare at her. "But I can still see you." Erin thought angrily that he was deliberately teasing her. "Because I'm your support, of course others can't see me." She was very confident in this skill and explained enthusiastically, "Unlike Savior's body, invisibility is a very worthwhile skill. In this state, I can stay invisible for up to 3 hours. She said excitedly in one long breath. "On the first day, I was too shocked and didn't have the mana to use it anyway. But now no player can see me." Singu could only smile helplessly at Erin's delight. All right. When the two had stopped walking, he ventured to end the conversation. "Whenever you run out of mana, just tell me, I'll hide you until you recover your mana," he said. He pulled away a white cloth in front of him, revealing an incredibly cool red motorcycle. He dangled the key in his hand, intending to take her exploring training at home all the time. Gets boring. So let's go find a new dungeon together. It seems Singu had prepared very thoroughly for this expedition. Aaron already allowed me to conquer the rank 1 dungeon in the ant nest, so I'm not afraid of anything. Besides, I was very brave from the start. Suddenly a giggle was heard. She tried to hold back her laughter and said, "But Singu, your bike." He was lost in thought, then startled and looked over. "Huh?" In the end, she burst out laughing. "Why is it a delivery motorcycle?" He realized he was being teased, but gave a knowing smirk. It seemed everything was part of the plan from the beginning. "If you say so, then that's what it is." But Aaron adamantly refused to accept it. "I think it's so weird." She complained about how he was using his bike. "You bought it for over $10,000, right? Who uses such a badass bike just to make deliveries like some gig worker?" Singu sighed tiredly. "Don't look down on the food delivery crew, you know." She suddenly paused, realizing she had gone a bit too far, and calmly listened. "What do you mean I've thought this through?" He earnestly tried to persuade Aaron to reassure her in this country. No one thinks a delivery motorcycle is unusual, so no one will pay any attention to it. The more Singu spoke, the more excited he became, revealing his true intentions, which also meant, "I can freely road trip all over the country," saying that he quickly put on his helmet, gripped the handlebars, ready to go get on. Aaron at this moment was still sobbing and bemoaning her fate. "I can't believe my first time on a motorcycle is with a guy on a delivery bike." Despite that, she still obediently climbed into the pouch on Singu's chest, feeling resentful. He didn't think much more of it, reminded her to hold on tight, then started the engine and set off. Immediately, the large displacement motorcycle shot forward with a whoosh. The sound of the engine roaring powerfully, the scenery on both sides of the road blurred past in the rushing sound of the wind. Singu sped through the lanes of traffic. Aaron cautiously peeked her head out and began to enjoy the feeling of the wind hitting her face. Not to let the trip get boring, he chatted happily with her. "Now we just need to find a dungeon. I've thought a little about that already." She asked a question that startled him a bit. "Do you remember how we found the first ant nest?" She nostalgically recalled their first experience together. "I fell from the sky, then you immediately caught me, and then both of us fell underground into the ant nest. But anyway, it's hard to believe that there was a tutorial dungeon there from the very beginning." Aaron boldly stated her judgment after thinking a lot, "So I think that tutorial dungeon might have been built with me as the unlocking condition." Hearing that, Singu pondered it over. "So you mean when you fell in the dungeon unlocked right away?" In reality, it was all just her speculation. She couldn't be certain. "It's possible the dungeon was transported there. It's just my hypothesis." He quickly began to understand her line of thought. So to find a dungeon based on what they had experienced, they could conclude that they had to find places where players had fallen to their deaths. Even though he'd thought of that, Singu didn't know what to do. "Next, that's right, but how do we find the players who fell to their deaths, or the locations where they fell?" Aaron quickly boasted. "I wasn't just sitting around while you were training." She used that time to search online everywhere, hoping to find an answer. "I've researched the locations where they fell. Based on my own memories and the player communities." He was so absorbed in training that he hadn't thought of this. He immediately asked her if she had found anything useful. "Oh, really? So there's a way to find the exact location, right?" However excited she was at first, she was now hesitant and flustered. He understood this was not an easy question, so they still had no answer. Aaron had already considered many possibilities. But of course it was hard to find an answer no matter where they fell. Calculating the wind speed and direction for that day was still a very difficult task. Singu knew there were still many unsolved mysteries. He had to resort to the most manual method. "I get it. It means we have to scour this entire country," he tried to shout so his voice would not be drowned out by the wind. "You drive, and I will look for the dungeon, because I know how to find it." With her ability that was well within her control, "If they are like the trial dungeons, I think I can find them." Aaron was muttering when she suddenly felt something unusual appear. "So there was a reason you are a support, huh?" She announced happily. "A dungeon. I see a dungeon." Singu was surprised, not expecting her to have found one so quickly. "We have only been going for half an hour." Overly excited, she urged him to move faster. "I did not believe it at first either, but I found it." Turn left," even though he also wanted to get there quickly. But the traffic light had not turned green yet. The light is not green yet. The scene shifted to a deserted area. An isolated warehouse stood amidst a mess of construction materials. Singu stopped, took off his helmet, and quietly looked around. He carefully observed the surroundings. Suddenly, a blinding glare like a divine light shone so brightly it hurt his eyes. He unhesitatingly threw his helmet along with the speeding bike, causing a rather large and shocking explosion. Aaron was confused, not understanding why he did that. What if someone saw us? He immediately reassured her, not forgetting to ask how she had detected the dungeon. No one is here, so it is fine, but how did you sense it? Waiting, Singu, with his keen senses, realized something was strange behind them. He turned his head and saw a small, sparkling pyramid appear, beckoning them. The pyramid that appeared before them emitted a dazzling aura like a divine radiance. The system immediately displayed information about the object, a dungeon of normal difficulty. Singu, who had only wanted to find a trial dungeon, was a bit annoyed and turned to glare. Aaron was flustered and avoided his gaze. She did not dare to look at him directly, trying awkwardly to change the subject. I do not know how to answer that, making Singu sigh helplessly. I knew you would say that. Anyway, the two of them had already gone through the trouble of coming all this way. Singu hesitated, thinking for a moment. I did not think I would have to enter a first-class dungeon first, and I never expected to level up so smoothly. Perhaps the fact that he discovered it was a sign. If I do not necessarily have to enter the dungeons in order, that is why I found this one so quickly. He was not the timid type. So he seemed quite eager to explore normal, huh? Everything here is yellow, too. A dungeon of normal difficulty that sparkling lights seemed to constantly invite them based on his many years of gaming experience. This dungeon implied its difficulty was just right for you to handle. Singu braced himself, ready to fight. All right, let's get to it beside him. Aaron clasped her hands, praying for all she was worth. Hoping this was not a difficult dungeon, he was a man of his word, slowly approaching the source of the light. The small pyramid, as if sensing someone approaching, immediately began to transform. Singu watched intently a barrier. Aaron quickly explained that it was a feature. It is helping the players entering the dungeon to not be seen. He exclaimed, not expecting this game to provide such thorough support. Great service, but she was anxious and urged him to act quickly. You should hurry up. Singu Arin could not grasp all the rules. I do not know how long this barrier will last. Singu became even more excited. He warmed up his arms and legs, preparing for action. Leave it to me. He focused his strength into his arm and decisively threw a punch straight at the ground. The pressure was so strong it created a swirling wind, blowing dust and sand everywhere, yet the ground did not even have a single crack. Singu was confused, not knowing what he had done wrong. I cannot believe it. I hit it that hard, and it is still intact suddenly. He paused as if remembering something, then slowly said, then he summoned the tail of chaos and slammed it down, easily shattering a chunk of earth and rock. Aaron understood the principle of the skill and cheered happily, so that is the key to the dungeon. Even so, he did not like this cumbersome tail at all. What a hassle. The sky was still blue. The clouds were still white. Who knows how much time had passed? Singu wearily wiped the sweat from his forehead, looking at the small hole he had just dug and sighing. How much longer do I have to dig? As soon as he finished speaking, large cracks began to appear around the small hole. It finally collapsed into a huge pit, causing Singu and Aaron to fall in before they could react. He saw a light at the bottom of the deep pit and was filled with hope. It is just like when I entered the trial dungeon, so the entry condition has been met. At that moment, on the ground where the two had been standing, a very suspicious centipede appeared. It slowly moved, wriggling its long body. The large hole had attracted its attention, causing it to crawl over curiously to investigate. In the end, the centipede also carelessly fell into the pit. The pit itself was also showing strange signs. The surrounding ground shook violently. The mouth of the pit slowly shrank in a blink of an eye. The cracks had sealed themselves, seemingly erasing all traces of the collapse. After regaining his composure, Singu looked around and observed the area. This must be it. Next to where the two had fallen was a mysterious gate looking inside. There was only pitch-black darkness outside. There was an information board, Ant Nest number 184, Worker Centipede Cavern. Completion limit 5 hours. Seeing this, he turned to ask Aaron, do dungeons usually have a completion limit? She did not always know everything. I am not sure either, but not always. The rules on the Sky Citadel do not always apply to the ant nests, so she herself was also very puzzled. What I am worried about here is... The words were left unspoken, but it seemed both of them feared the same thing. What will happen if we exceed the completion limit? Singu tried to imagine the terrible possibilities they might face. Will the dungeon collapse on our heads or something? Aaron was just as scared thinking about it, or maybe it is like when I fell from the Sky Citadel and lost all my mana, but since nothing had happened yet, she could not predict. She could only sigh and reassure herself, I do not think we will die. But it is better to be careful. When she saw the notification screen start the countdown, she urged him to act quickly. We have to hurry and try not to put ourselves in danger. In contrast, Singu was currently extremely confident in his abilities. It is fine. I do not even need your help, saying that he raised his hand and summoned the black wolf's claw. Seeing this, Aaron grew even more anxious. I do not think monsters that applied debuffs would appear in the first dungeon, but you should still be careful. Singu, however, did not think too much about it, asserting that he could handle it completely. But this is not a first-class dungeon. It is a completely different one. She still warned him about the danger he was about to face. I am sure the centipedes have poison, and you do not have poison resistance. Do not let your guard down. Singu, not understanding the seriousness of the situation, acted very arrogant. A centipede is still just a centipede. Aaron, feeling helpless, gave him an example to think about. What about centipedes that are 100 meters long and 1 meter high? He immediately avoided her gaze, scratching his cheek in embarrassment. Centipedes that big. Hearing that, she sighed wearily. This guy, anyway, as a support, she was even more worried since she could not guarantee she could help him. I have gained a few skills from being a support, but I do not have the mana to use them. I do not have any healing potions or anything either, so I will have to use my skills to heal you, but using detoxification against poison. Having to calculate things in advance made her realize there were many risks. I can only use it 2 times. In the worst-case scenario, it might not be strong enough to counter the centipede's poison. Singu did not seem to be listening, eagerly leading the way into the cave. What is the point of just thinking about it, right? Aaron could only give up and follow him. I knew you would say that. She nimbly settled into Singu's pocket. As usual, the two of them began their exploration. Let's go. Do not jump out of my pocket, okay? Even though I have not sensed any monsters yet. Aaron felt very puzzled and asked again, how do you sense them? Before he could answer, she was suddenly startled. Feeling a chill run down her spine, a very strange black figure appeared in front of them, making her scream in terror. Ah! Singu, with his steady nerves, quickly reassured his teammate, it is just a ghost. Calm down! She immediately covered her face, her voice choked with sobs as if she were about to cry. I hate undead monsters the most. He did not expect it to make her react so strongly. Is that why you screamed? Suddenly, the ghost began to speak slowly. You are a real person, are you not? Singu immediately noticed something unusual. It seems he is happy to see us. Aaron tried to suppress her fear and asked, excuse me, but could you speak a little faster? The ghost replied at the speed of a sloth. I am sorry, I have not spoken in a long time. At that moment, the ghost's form was gradually revealed in the light. Singu immediately questioned him. Are you really a ghost? Dangan's face, now with lifeless, glazed-over eyes, explained, I've already logged out, but I'm still standing here. Hearing this, he grew more confused and annoyed by the vague answer, logged out. Were you a player too? Aaron beside him widened her eyes in surprise upon hearing this. A player looking closely at Dangan's upper torso, she vaguely realized, logged out. He followed the source of the sound and found a girl in Shingu's pocket, so tiny. This made her a little annoyed at his attitude. Did the little one eat everything at your place? Singu, who had been silent, suddenly tightened his grip on the black wolf claw, creating a soft sound, his decisive voice following suit. Fine. It seemed Singu had thought it through, his eyes filled with killing intent as he raised his weapon to attack. Let's start with a test strike. Aaron, slightly panicked, quickly tried to stop Singu. He also stopped and explained his reasoning to her. I thought it was a monster, since we're in a dungeon. Dangan, only now realizing Singu intended to destroy him, panicked. Terrified, he yelled, Wait, if you hit me, I'll really die. Singu sighed in exasperation and replied, You're already dead, aren't you? It seemed he was afraid of truly being wiped out. So he still tried to explain, I'll have a more vivid and spectacular death, but then, as if thinking of something, his eyes lit up, so are you an enemy? Dangan lost his composure from being constantly misunderstood and shouted in frustration, I'm not an enemy! I've been waiting for someone to come ever since I woke up here. Someone to avenge me. Someone to complete my quest for me. Hearing this, Singu was surprised to grasp the key point, a quest. The system immediately displayed a new notification. Dungeon Quest discovered Vengeful Spirit of the Centipede Cave. Seeing this, he quickly focused and read the text carefully, a vengeful spirit whose title and spiritual body are trapped underground after logging out. As a player, he wants you to annihilate the centipedes in the most brutal way possible. Finally, the progress tracker updated, starting the counter for the quest status. Annihilate the centipedes in the cave, 0 out of 150. He now understood what he needed to do next, annihilate them, huh? But right after, the system offered a choice. Do you accept the quest? If you refuse, there will be a penalty. This made Singu feel like the player was being forced to agree, a bit coercive. Piecing together the recent information, he came to a conclusion. So this spirit is here to give a quest. Aaron, having also understood, added, yes, it's a quest. As long as the reward is clear, A quest can be passed from one player to another. He suddenly realized he'd forgotten to consider the most important thing. What's the reward? According to her experience, they would receive significant benefits. It could be anything from artifacts and abstract concepts to assets and rights in the real world. Of course, there are special exceptions. In some rare cases, they can even wager their data profiles or mana. This information truly opened Singu's eyes. Based on all that, Aaron could confidently make a judgment. I'm sure this type of quest has a reward like that. It's all this vengeful spirit has to offer. He asked again to confirm Dangan's exact purpose for being here. Do I need to complete the quest for you to be able to pass on? But the answer was still incredibly vague. I don't know. Suddenly, his whole body trembled. His hands clenched into fists, and he spoke in a choked voice, but perhaps Dangan had endured a great deal. So his emotions now erupted violently. I really want to see those centipedes suffer. No suffer more than I ever did. Seeing this, Singu frowned in annoyance. He glanced over, observing silently, seeing his extremely gloomy expression. He could sense that things were about to get very troublesome. This type of character always causes problems in comics. He hesitated, wanting to just get rid of this obstacle and continue exploring. Should I just deal with him now? But I can't kill someone based on a feeling. Thinking again, he had only just begun his journey, especially since this was his first quest. To be sure, he decided to ask for Aaron's opinion. What do you think? Aaron, trusted by him, she seriously considered the matter. Finally, she cheerfully stated her opinion. Well, we were planning to clear this dungeon anyway, so we should just take the quest. Although Annihilate sounds a bit dangerous based on the system notification, Singu thought it would be quite difficult. Don't I just need to hit them really hard to kill them? She tried to analyze it more clearly and accurately. You need to deal significantly more damage than the enemy's remaining health. She quickly realized this first quest wasn't so easy. Although this increases the essence drop rate, it's much harder to execute. Singu was in a difficult position, not wanting to back down from a challenge, but the requirement was quite high. You can't just simply kill the enemy, but I need to deal just enough damage and then finish it with a powerful blow that requires more strength and concentration. Suddenly, Aaron's voice rang out, cutting through his thoughts. There's a penalty if you fail the quest. She encouraged him based on the system's words. You should take it on bravely, but there's also a penalty for refusing. So I recommend accepting the quest first, fighting a few centipedes, and then deciding whether to continue with it or not. Encouraged, Singu felt a surge of strength filled with fighting spirit. All right, I'll accept the quest. The system displayed a confirmation message. You have accepted the quest. There will be a penalty if you fail the quest. Dangan, having achieved his goal, was moved to tears, happier than a new father. Thank you. He looked at this reaction with a mix of helplessness and disbelief, so he trusts me to complete it. Yet I get penalized if I fail or refuse, so as not to waste any more time. He turned to leave, preparing to start the fight. Well, I'm off to fight the centipedes. He didn't forget to give a reminder, intending to follow the two of them. Their fangs are poisonous, so you have to be careful. I'll provide support. Every time he remembered being defeated by those centipedes, Dangan couldn't help but feel bitter. They always attack when you let your guard down. That's why I got bitten right from the start. Singu really didn't want to tag along getting in the way, but didn't want to refuse outright, so he just hesitated. Aaron, however, reacted very strongly, because that was her job, the reason she was here. Providing support is my job. Singu Dangan stubbornly tagged along. Rambling on. This dungeon became a centipede dungeon because I was killed by centipedes in Sky City. Do you have any idea how terrifying they look? Suddenly he remembered something, stopped, and turned back to ask a question. Hey, have you explored this dungeon yet? Dangan immediately froze up, feeling embarrassed, and could only stammer out his story. Not yet. I waited in that room until someone showed up. I can't move anyway. He grew a little curious and ventured to ask, how did you two get in? Looking at your tail, I guess you two aren't ordinary players. Aaron clearly didn't want Dangan to come along and felt very annoyed. He talks about danger but acts like he's on a picnic. She hadn't seen anything different yet and was starting to lose patience. This is the third room already. Just then, Singu's footsteps halted. It seemed he had stepped on something. His voice turned serious. A trap. The guy behind him still hadn't processed it and was bewildered. What is it? His sharp eyes focused, ready to fight at any moment. A giant centipede appeared. It crawled from a hole in the ceiling and slowly approached them. It raised its sharp claws and lunged down, letting out an ear-splitting screech. Finally, using the black wolf claw, he gathered his strength and swung a direct blow, instantly shattering the massive centipede's head. As its body vanished, reward items dropped. It seems they had collected a talisman and a red quartz. Dangan was left gawking at the scene, completely shocked. He was still trembling, not understanding. What on earth had just happened in those few seconds? What just happened? Singu noticed the system had updated the progress, annihilated 1 out of 150. Aaron, as if reading his mind, offered her judgment. I think that last hit counted as an overkill. Hearing that, he broke into a radiant smile as bright as the sun, unable to contain his excitement. He cheered, confident about the journey ahead. Awesome new gear makes all the difference. At this rate, I won't even need to use mana. In their hearts, she and Dangan were still stunned. A single light swing counted as a kill. Dangan then took the opportunity to ramble on about what he knew. After being sent to meet his maker by the centipedes in this cave are all very stealthy, agile, and poisonous. In his eyes, they were like creatures with destructive power. They are assassination-type monsters. Aaron also chimed in with a reminder that it was never a bad idea to be extra vigilant. They also have extremely hard exoskeletons, so don't underestimate them, Singu. Just as she finished speaking, 2 more giant centipedes charged out of nowhere, letting out ear-splitting screeches with his keen intuition. He quickly sensed the danger, swinging the black wolf claw, ready to attack. In the blink of an eye, the 2 centipedes were instantly sliced in half with a single clean swing of his claw. The system continuously displayed the quest condition to kill all the centipedes in the cave, 78 out of 150, even though he had seen it countless times by now. But Dangan's jaw still dropped in amazement, because the reason he was turned to gold was due to these many-legged creatures. So it was hard to believe that with just 1 strike, he had taken down several of the worker-killer centipedes, which were at least level 80. There was no way to kill so many of them so easily. He started to feel intimidated by Shingu's power, stammering as he asked, "Can you tell me your level?" He just coldly and calmly replied with a short 10, causing Dangan to freeze up, so shocked he couldn't utter a single word. As for Aaron, even though she was always by his side, she hadn't expected this situation either. I should have known that Singu had gotten much stronger just by possessing a D++ rank weapon. It seemed all her initial worries were for nothing. I'm not too surprised that he found where the centipedes were hiding and immediately launched a preemptive strike, but I didn't expect him to take down a centipede with just 1 swing. And to wipe them all out, too. As for Singu, he was still happily in his own world, extremely pleased to have figured out the pattern if I find the right center of force and point of impact. I don't need to swing with all my might just to unleash the weapon's power. Because he fought so effortlessly, Aaron didn't need to use her support skills. She just stood behind and observed. I'm not sure how the dungeon's difficulty is determined. But considering the level and venom of the centipedes, a normal difficulty seems appropriate for Singu, a fact that made her wonder whether to be happy or sad. But his strange sixth sense and natural combat instincts made this dungeon seem very easy. Meanwhile, he was still dancing alone among the swarm of centipedes. Even when surrounded by them, his fighting spirit didn't waver. His eyes, filled with killing intent, locked onto his target as he coolly breathed out a sentence. The one thing I don't like about this place is, just then he seized the opportunity to strike a centipede that had just peeked out immediately, sending it flying back by inertia right as another one was crawling out of a hole in the ceiling. A spectacular scene unfolded as they smashed into each other, shattering to pieces and going down together. Dangan, watching from the side like an overexcited fan, cheered loudly. After seeing that brilliant strike kill 2 with 1 blow, Singu pressed his advantage, laughing excitedly with an ever more overwhelming presence. It wasn't over yet as 2 more inexperienced centipedes fumbled out. They emerged from behind a rock, and in a flash, the black wolf's claw sliced through the air, easily cutting them in half. Dangan was still not used to this carnage. His face turned pale with fear. The last throw had lodged the axe into the cave wall. Singu stretched refreshingly to retrieve his weapon. At this rate, you won't even get a chance to use your mana. Aaron could only sigh and reassure herself. Perhaps I was worrying for nothing. He understood some of her anxiety and comforted her. It's okay. There's no harm in being well prepared when exploring a mysterious place. After giving the centipedes a thorough beating, Singu was in high spirits. It's not my fault, it's this dungeon's fault. Suddenly, Dangan cut in, wanting to suggest something. Then he made a very strange proposal. How about we make a little more noise? Singu, being sharp, immediately guessed his intention. You want me to call out the centipedes? When he met Shingu's gaze, he got nervous and fumbled for a reasonable explanation. Quantity over quality, right? If there are more centipedes, won't you have a chance to test your mana? Aaron's expression immediately turned serious, and she bluntly refused without hesitation. But that's too dangerous. This made her even more wary of that vengeful spirit. She wanted to leave quickly. I think we should abandon this quest, Singu. With eyes that saw through everything, she directly exposed Dangon's plot. He is deliberately trying to provoke you. And he wants you to do the one thing forbidden in a dungeon. Provoke the entire area. Aaron believed his real purpose for being here was to get in the way. That spirit is clearly trying to harm you. It holds a grudge against you, not the centipedes. Dangon panicked, afraid he'd be beaten into logging out again, and quickly said, "You've misunderstood me. I really just—" He shouted decisively, affirming with certainty, "Want to kill all the centipedes." Aaron sighed with disgust, still half believing, half doubting. Really, Singu finally spoke up, smiling to ease the tense atmosphere. Calm down. He didn't know what it was based on, but he completely trusted this vengeful spirit. I never doubted you. Seeing that he wasn't taking her side, she sulked. Singu Dangan, seeing an opportunity, pressed on, trying to coax him with a few more words. I knew you would believe me, and I really want to complete this quest this time. Ignoring his words, his attitude immediately changed as he had his own thoughts. It's true, I never doubted him for a second. From the beginning, he had been specially observing this strange spirit. There's no way he's on my side after just a few words. You can't judge a person so easily. What if he was a player when he was alive? In this world, there are people who are worse than monsters. Anyway, Dangon has no combat ability. I can use him to get more useful information. I just need something from him. And he's no threat to me, so I'll just let him be. Singu's ultimate goal was to explore the dungeon. He shouldn't become a concern. I don't know what this spirit wants, but I don't need to know because it's useless. To avoid letting Dangon find out, I should pretend to agree. I have to do it his way. Since he had already started, he had to see it through. All right, let's do it. Aaron couldn't fully understand what he was planning. Oh my, you're so stubborn. Singu no longer paid attention to her words and began to take a deep breath, then tensed his body and gathered all his strength to shout as loudly as possible. Ah, ah, ah. The sound was so powerful it created a wind like a Category 5 hurricane. It made Dangon so scared he was on the verge of tears. Next, Singu channeled his strength into his two hands, gripping the black wolf's claw tightly. The axe was swung down with full force, lunging forward and extending its long handle. It slammed into the cave wall, creating a massive crack. Singu once again roared and charged forward. Holding the axe tightly, he ran while tearing a wide hole in the wall. Dangon did not expect this situation. His whole body trembled and he couldn't form a sentence. What is this? Aaron was also shocked to her core, feeling that this was just too insane. The dungeon walls can be destroyed. Singu ignored the world and continued on his own path of destruction, wrecking every corner. The centipedes, having lost their hiding places, swarmed out along with the rubble. Aaron was terrified. She worried that they would have a hard time escaping from here. The centipedes just kept coming. They had nowhere else to hide. Although Dangon was the one who instigated this, his courage had now dropped to zero. Why are you so strong and so reckless? She cut him off and quickly shouted a warning. Singu, the centipedes are coming. He just gave a knowing smirk, feeling that the current situation was incredibly exciting. Not yet. Despite the centipedes surrounding him from all sides, he stood in a ready stance for the decisive battle. This still isn't enough. Once again, Singu used the black wolf's claw to smash another worker-killer centipede. He dismembered it into many pieces. Singu grinned with delight, just like a game of whack-a-mole. As soon as he finished speaking, he swung his weapon again, taking down a few more. It seemed Singu was very enthusiastic. This is more like it. Meanwhile, Aaron was extremely worried. Be careful not to get bitten, he reassured her while attacking them. Don't worry, they can't bite me. She stood tucked to one side and saw the centipedes piled on top of each other with a look of fear. He just kept breaking the walls and killing all the centipedes that came out. The centipede corpses piled up more and more even before he had a chance to pick up the loot. Witnessing that scene, Dangon broke out in a sweat. He's not human for Singu to be able to handle them all so easily by himself. He whispered to Aaron, I can't sense much mana from him, how is he? She sighed softly and said slowly, I also used to think that mana was the absolute factor in becoming stronger. Meanwhile, the more Singu fought, the more excited he became. This is fun! Are other players always this happy? He thought back to his past. Because I was naturally strong since I was a kid, I was never serious in any physical activities, or rather, I couldn't go all out. If I slipped up, someone could get seriously hurt, so I had to learn to hold back my strength and endure first. Growing up, I could only release a little bit during practice. But that still wasn't enough. I just wanted to unleash my full power. And now, in this moment, Singu was extremely exhilarated. I finally have a chance to do it. I can go all out and no one can stop me. A radiant smile appeared on his face. I'm so happy I'm not hurting anyone anymore. Erin suddenly spoke up, her voice faltering. Singu, look, there are 3 centipedes bigger than usual approaching. He turned around and saw 3 giant monsters staring at him. Dangan immediately gave a cold smile. They're here. The attacking centipedes let out a terrifying screech. He observed them and then spoke up. We were supposed to fight them one by one because the path was narrow, but now you've broken down the walls. We'll have to fight them all at once. That's what you call karma. That made Dangan laugh gloatingly. Finally, his actions angered Arin. Yu Singu muttered softly as he stood before the swarm of centipedes, oh boy, as soon as he identified his targets. Singu lowered his body to gain momentum, and in a flash his body shot into the air. Then he used the Black Wolf's claw, striking down on each of their heads one by one. In an instant they were struck down. Witnessing that scene, Dangun's face was frozen solid. Singu looked at the shattered fragments falling all around, and smiled faintly, his face full of satisfaction. Maybe I should save my mana for the boss fight a few seconds later. The notification board appeared, quest condition, kill all the centipedes in the cave, you have completed 300%. Singu looked at the results, stunned. I didn't realize because I was having too much fun. But it seems I killed 3 times the required number. I guess the +3 was for the 3 giant centipedes. That appeared at the end when he saw Erin. He asked quietly, the system says, I've exceeded the quest completion requirement. Of course, it's a good thing, she affirmed with certainty. Rewards differ depending on the quest, she explained thoroughly, but they will definitely become more and more appealing. This is an absolute rule guaranteed by the laws of the Celestial City. She was mid-sentence when Erin stared at Dangun and thought, but I can no longer trust the player who gave this quest. Instantly, she became wary because he had already revealed his true colors. There's no way he'd just hand over the reward. And she silently analyzed he would have to reward him for completing the quest, but he's already a vengeful spirit. If he tries anything, he might be destroyed completely. After a moment, Dangun decided, I will give you the reward. Hearing that both Singu and Arin were stunned without hesitation, she rushed to shield him. You wanted Singu to die, and now you're going to give him a reward. At that moment, Dangun told the truth. I really did want that. I didn't want to be injured or die alone at that time. I was too full of hatred to think clearly. Arin listened intently as he explained, a vengeful spirit is born when a pure soul is controlled by emotions combined with tainted mana and then evolves into something else. It surpasses status effects and is considered a monster, but when I saw the centipedes completely annihilated without a single soul remaining, I felt soothed. Finally, I have returned to my senses at this very moment. Dangun's expression softened with a hint of relief. You completed the mission more than excellently, it seemed. Arin still couldn't believe what she had just heard. Singu didn't hesitate to speak bluntly. I didn't really care if you had attacked me. I would have killed you on the spot. Dangun wasn't angry, but instead showed a look of longing. If only I had a teammate like you. That's in the past now, he said softly. I will give you the reward, but Singu waved his hand in refusal. No, he said confidently. I can still exceed the quota even more. Dangun's eyes widened in surprise. What Arin looked worried, Singu no. Dangun was stunned, unable to believe what he just heard. No way are you planning to kill the boss too. Singu nonchalantly grinned, showing his teeth with a super sharp wink, then praised himself for being so smart. Arin, standing beside him, saw his excitement and couldn't help but worry about this bold decision. As for Dangun, he stood frozen and confused, not knowing how to react. Singu paid no mind sitting down to pick up items and said, I just went wild back there without conserving any stamina at all. But this style suits me better. Look at all the loot dropping. He turned with a determined gaze, affirming he was still full of energy. Immediately, Singu confidently showed off his sturdy physique. His body grew hotter after the battles. The muscle fibers that had never been fully utilized were now overflowing with power, giving him a feeling of deep excitement. Dangun heard that and remarked, your muscles are truly monstrous. Singu shouted in annoyance. Be quiet for a bit. Arin didn't join their conversation, just stood aside, pondering. It must be very difficult to kill the boss, too. But the problem is Singu makes it seem possible. The image of him quickly defeating enemies with a single punch gradually appeared in her mind. Then Dangun began to recount, this dungeon is built upon the memories of my death. He rolled his eyes, making a judgment, so it's very likely the boss will attack in a different way. Singu gripped the Black Wolf's claw, curiously a different way of attacking. Dangun emphasized the key point to note poisonous bones. The boss will take down opponents with poisonous bones spewed from its mouth when threatened, and it can also shoot poison from its tail like a laser beam. He rubbed his chin, imagining Godzilla. Is that what he means? Suddenly, Singu seemed to have thought of something. Wait a minute, I conquered this dungeon without taking any poison damage because I didn't give the centipedes any chance to bite me, but what if it's poison gas? If I had entered the boss room back then without knowing this, then even if I didn't die, I would have been in extreme trouble. Dangun turned to add more details, but it has a warning sign before it attacks. You can definitely see it and dodge. Of course, there's also a chance the situation will be different from what I experienced, so be careful. Singu listened silently to every word Dangun said, carefully committing the warning to memory. Thanks for telling me, he replied quickly, it's nothing, then gave an expectant smile. I also want to see how you'll destroy them. Singu's lips curled into a smirk, his expression full of excitement. This is really fun. If I had beaten up this vengeful spirit from the start out of suspicion, I wouldn't have gotten any information about the boss, and I probably would have had to fight the whole swarm of centipedes at once. If he hadn't regained his sanity through the quest, he wouldn't have given me the reward, he grinned as an indescribable excitement welled up inside him. This feeling is just like a game at this moment. Dangun mentioned the land of the winged people, the dungeons, and the celestial city all make one think of a game. Although that thought is also very dangerous, a game that only those who enter can play, then he turned his voice low and emphasized, and you have to pay with your life. That statement made Singu pause. Arin beside him added, those who see the celestial city and dungeons as a game will become indifferent to their own lives, and die much more easily. He thought of those who had died and revived many times. Enjoying what you do is important, but looking down on everything as a game is different. Those who think this is just a game and just try a few times and then quit. It's better for them to die quickly than, he excitedly suggested. If you're going to treat this as a game, you should aim to clear it in one go. Arin looked at Singu with a surprised and slightly confused expression and exclaimed, I really don't understand you. After looking at the clock, he realized, it's been 2 hours and 34 minutes since we started. So we have to finish before the clock strikes 3 hours. She shook her head wearily. Finishing a large dungeon like this in under 3 hours, you should just forget it. He spoke up, asking, do you know where the boss room is? Singu calmly wagged his finger and said, no need to look far, everything is in ruins. Only rubble remains. Taking a few steps forward, he pointed ahead except for that door. Arin was so surprised she was speechless. I never would have imagined finding the boss room this way. Without a hint of hesitation, Singu excitedly sped up and rushed forward. Let's go. Seeing him so confident, Arin panicked and tried to stop him. Singu, we should prepare, but her words fell on deaf ears. He paid no attention and forcefully kicked the door open as Arin shouted, hey, come on! He advanced deep into the room alone. The other two followed closely behind. As soon as they arrived, Dangun pointed in shock over there. He confirmed that giant centipede Bomu in front of us is the boss that killed me in the difficulty 10 dungeon. Hearing that, Arin froze and turned in astonishment. This is a difficulty 10 dungeon. She became tense, quickly scanning every corner of the room. A difficulty 10 dungeon is where players' ranks are determined. The monsters and traps here are much stronger than in lower-level dungeons. And usually some bosses are even stronger than those in level 15 dungeons, so you have to fight them in a large party. I can't believe Singu has to face it alone without a moment's hesitation. Singu held the black wolf's claw and rushed forward to fight Bomu one-on-one. He gritted his teeth, his mind racing. The boss can't move for 3 seconds. As soon as the boss room door opens, I'll use that time to attack. With that thought, he leaped and thrust his claw into the air, shouting, die. The strike from above came down like a thunderbolt, slamming directly into the giant centipede's body, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Without wasting a second, he immediately executed the next step of his plan. Then I'll use the mana transferred into the hammer and detonate it, following the hammer's momentum towards the enemy's core. Dangun froze before the scene. Before the scene in front of them, he exclaimed in astonishment, what is that? She awkwardly explained he has experience fighting giant monsters. Singu jumped back to a safe distance after the attack. His eyes were glued to Bomu's tail, which was now severed. He cheered excitedly, destroyed one part, then raised the black wolf's claw as if showing off a trophy, so the tail really did have a poison gland. Your hammer is also covered in poison. Arin grimaced and refused flatly. I'm not touching that. Returning to the fight, he pondered thoughtfully. I used all my strength to shatter it. I feel like I could crush its head, too. His eyes swept over the hard orange shell, guessing that because it was a weak point, it would surely be much tougher than the tail. but if he had aimed for the head, the battle would have been over quickly. Thinking that, he let out a long sigh. Singu looked at it regretfully. He had almost defeated it right from the beginning. Dan Gunn, cowering behind the door in fear, reminded him that it was preparing to spray its poison gas. Standing cautiously before the boss, Singu thought to himself, "This is where it truly begins." At first I thought the boss would be as easy to handle as the other centipedes, but due to some unexpected events, things have become more difficult. Not only is it gigantic, but it also knows how to spit venom. Singu agilely dodged each of Bomu's attacks. The real problem was its poison gas. He hugged the wall, but it didn't matter how wide the corridor was. But if it keeps spewing that poison, it won't be long before I can't do anything. Gripping his weapon tightly, he resolved to go for a quick victory, which meant ending the fight as soon as possible. Even though I've destroyed its tail, I don't think I can. Kill it by smashing its head, and I also can't use mana to cast punishment. Bomu shrieked loudly and lunged forward at full speed. Singu swiftly dodged just before it crashed into him. He watched the monster with a fascinated gaze. A physical attack with its broken tail combined with poison gas. Dealing with two attacks at once is a pain. Suddenly he noticed something paused for a moment, then let out a delighted laugh. "But I can do this. I'm a genius." Aaron, a mix of worried and curious, asked Singu, "Have you thought of a way?" He replied confidently while moving nimbly. Of course, Singu's erratic movements made Bomu visibly surprised, which further strengthened his confidence. "I knew it." Its huge body turns too slowly. Immediately, he tensed his arm, channeling energy into his weapon, distributing his mana. Just a few seconds later, the black wolf's claw was. He threw it into the air where it circled gracefully. Bomu tilted its head back intently, watching the spinning object above. Without wasting a second, Singu leaped and charged forward. Yah! His entire body tensed as he poured all his strength into his fist. Below, Aaron's eyes widened in a mix of astonishment and confusion. Using punishment and a punch at the same time. Is he really trying to perform those two difficult techniques simultaneously and land them in a single strike? Taking advantage of the moment, Bomu was distracted by the black wolf's claw. Singu landed a powerful uppercut on the weak point. He landed firmly on his feet, letting out a heavy breath. At the same time, familiar text scrolled past. Punishment has reached level 7. Carelessness is courage has reached level 2. He put both hands on his hips, watching as Bomu's body collapsed. Phew, that was close. Any more force and the hammer would have broken. Immediately after, the data panel flooded with notifications. Mission condition: kill all Z's in the cave. 453 plus 3 plus 1 out of 150. You have reached 500% of the mission objective. Area mission 184th Z, cave worker Z cave has been cleared. Suarin was dumbfounded, her mouth agape. You really killed the boss too? Singu didn't answer, silently watching the next lines of text appear one by one. Dungeon complete. Calculating results. Completion time. 2 minutes and 46 seconds. All traps disarmed. Eliminated 503 worker Zs, 3 attack Zs, and 1 giant Z. Special achievement, what is poison can you eat it, has been earned. A special reward has been obtained. Player skill innate poison resistance. Completion rank S. Special reward key to the rest area. Dan Gunn and Aaron were struck speechless. After a moment's pause, the system notification sounded. Experience calculation successful. You have gained 5 levels. Singu looked surprised at the energy flaring up around his body. He wondered at this new sensation. It's different from when I first learned mana. Aaron flew over and explained this time it's just strengthening what you already possess so it won't cause severe pain anymore. At that moment, the stat window appeared before Singu's eyes. Unregistered player Singu, level 15, strength 112, agility 111, stamina 125, magic 15. Then he checked the next section. Skills. Innate skills. Chaotic tail level 1. Carelessness is courage level 2. Poison resistance level 1. Active skills distribution level 9. Punishment level 7. After reading through it all, he suddenly clenched his hand. A long, quiet sigh escaped his lips, carrying a hint of fatigue and contemplation. After a careful inspection, he began to understand. So strength, agility, and stamina will increase by 2 points per level up, and magic will increase by 1 point per level up. Singu mumbled, I'm still not used to seeing strength displayed in numbers. Aaron excitedly chimed in. But seeing your own progress isn't so bad, is it? He scratched his head awkwardly. Right. Next are the rewards. Singu was stunned as he scanned the list of new abilities. First is poison resistance. I haven't even been poisoned once. Why did I get this skill, I wonder? She rested her chin on her hand, pondering. I'm not sure either. He regained his focus, remembering the advantage of this new ability. In any case, this skill will help me resist and overcome poison. Since there will be many more poisonous monsters in the future, this skill is necessary. After that, he lowered his head and pulled another item from his inventory. The key is the real issue. Its information appeared key to the rest area, a key granted to unregistered players with potential. Used by inserting it into the ground. He frowned, observing the overly vague description. A rest area and insert it into the ground. Erin tilted her head and spoke cautiously. I think you'll have to try using it to find out. Singu, frustrated, tossed it into his spatial storage. Whatever. He spun the weapon in his hand and looked at Bomu. All right then. Dan Gunn watched with wide, astonished eyes at the scene unfolding. Suddenly, a resounding crash made him jump as Singu expertly swung the black wolf's claw. In the blink of an eye, he had shattered everything in front of him. He picked up the item in his hand, then turned to Dan Gunn and reminded him, I've collected all the essences, so give me the mission reward. The flustered boy stammered, that's right. Your reward? Dan Gunn clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. He has reflexes. That are excellent, and he executes the punishment skill better than any player I've ever seen. He's too good for someone like me who got stuck in a level 10 dungeon. If I could support him on his journey, wouldn't my existence become more meaningful? He was lost in thought, forgetting that Singu was waiting. Finally, he spoke, hesitant but full of determination. If you achieved 500%, then it's possible. He placed a hand on his chest, hesitating slightly before continuing. I will bestow upon you the essence of my memory. Those words made both of them look doubtful. They exclaimed in unison, the essence of your memory. Aaron's eyes lit up with excitement. Is it a skill? He repeated, confused. A skill. Dan Gunn smiled and confirmed that's right. As he spoke, his body began to dissolve into sparkling ribbons of light. This is the only thing I have left after being trapped in this dungeon. Let me give it to you. After hearing Dan Gunn speak, a look of surprise slowly appeared on Singu's face. The only potential what kind of skill is that? Dan Gunn had resolved to let go of everything. Sparkling streaks of light emanated from around him. Seeing this, Singu turned to the little angel Erin and asked, Do you know anything about this? Her face showed a flash of confusion and she stammered, I thought he was going to give us a skill he used to have. However, looking at Dan Gunn's current state, I'm a bit speechless, but it looks like he's transferring his very self to us. Singu jumped in alarm. What? That sounds terrifying. Suddenly, a hammer appeared in his hand, also known as the Black Wolf's Claw. Strangely, where Singu's hand touched the Black Wolf's claw, a peculiar light suddenly flared up. The light quickly faded before he could react, and once the process was over, a mark with a rather strange pattern appeared on his hand. Singu stared at the mark in surprise, thinking a strange symbol has appeared on my hand. I can feel a peculiar power coming from it, while he was still admiring the mark on his hand. The mechanical sounds rang out again. Mission complete. You have received the Skill Soul Collection. Currently collected 11 souls. You do not yet know how to use souls. Hearing this, Singu was quite bewildered. What soul collection? From behind Erin quickly added, I've never heard of this skill before. She continued to explain to Singu, my understanding is that he was so impressed by you that he offered his soul to you. But why didn't he explain how to use it when he did so? Singu could only stand there and watch everything helplessly. So this is the end of a 500% overachievement? A weird tattoo. But very quickly he lifted his spirits and told himself, well, at least I did my best. So I guess I have to be satisfied. Erin swiftly flew in front of Singu and repeatedly praised his new achievement. I can't believe you completed it without taking a single hit. After this battle, Singu had gained a lot of experience. His mind was now busy connecting the dots. Surely not every dungeon is like this one, but I can conclude that normal-level dungeons aren't too difficult to conquer. The first dungeon trip ended in great success. He quickly turned around. Now let's offer the monster cores to the altar. As if he had discovered something, Singu suddenly froze. Before him now were two altars shimmering brightly. Singu pointed towards the red altar and asked Erin, what's with the red glowing altar next to the white glowing one? Looking at her bewildered companion, Erin could only offer a wry smile. I really didn't want to have to tell you, but deep down, she kept her eyes on the red altar. It's an altar that only appears when a dungeon is completed with a very high score. A very high score. It's an enhancement altar. You can enhance a piece of equipment by offering monster essence, she cheerfully continued to explain, not noticing the change in Singu's expression. The result will depend on the nature, quality, and quantity of the essence. A sinister glint suddenly flashed in Singu's eyes. I get it. Without waiting any longer, he quickly walked towards the altar, leaving Aaron to trail behind him. Singu, can you try to get some armor first? Singu immediately replied, even if I offer all the essence, it's not guaranteed I'll get armor. He held the monster essence he had collected in his hands, looking pleased. Besides, who knows when we'll find another enhancement altar, so I need to enhance my weapon first if possible. A good offense is the best defense, right? Hearing that Aaron was at a loss for words and just went along with him. Singu placed the items he had collected on the red altar and a blinding light quickly appeared. Suddenly, 2 monster essence stones flew out and fell to the ground. Seeing this, Singu panicked. It rejected all the essence. At that moment, a mechanical voice rang out again. Enhancement maximized. This artifact can no longer be enhanced. Aaron breathed a sigh of relief while Singu was so angry he gritted his teeth. Seeing Singu's unhappy expression, Aaron hurriedly cleared up the confusion. The Black Wolf Claw was already a very high grade from the start. It was fully upgraded with just the final insect essence and 1 high-grade monster essence. It looks like we'll have to enhance with what we have here. The enhancement process continued. Finally, sparkling rays of light appeared once more. The enhancement process is complete. The original item has been upgraded to the Black Wolf Claw rank D+, attack 450 to 1070, has a chance to poison on hit. Below it was an accompanying note. This warhammer possesses the power of a great black wolf's foreleg and has an added strong poison ability. Singu happily took the new weapon and gave it a few test swings. Beside him, Aaron shyly reminded him, you got a rank D+ weapon in the tutorial dungeon and then you enhanced it to D+ on your very first dungeon run. Singu gave Aaron a very confident smile. It even got an additional trait, although I still don't know what the first trait was. As if remembering something, Aaron quickly said to Singu, it might be related to the nature of the great black wolf species. Just increase your weapon proficiency and you'll unlock it. So don't worry. But he was a little skeptical. Really? Aaron's face flushed slightly. She thought to herself, next we should find a set of armor, though there's no guarantee it will appear. Singu looked at the bag of items in his hand and fell into deep thought. It would be better to use all of this for enhancement. But without a second thought, he directly poured all the essence onto the altar. Aaron had a bad feeling and fell silent, lost in thought. He used it all at once again. Now the only thing I can do is... Above the altar, that magical light appeared again. Singu stood silently watching while Aaron bowed respectfully as if she were praying. Suddenly she burst out laughing so hard she cried, ha ha ha, another new weapon was born. It was the rank D+ venomous swarm fangs. Singu's eyes lit up with excitement when he saw the new weapon. Look, armor, Aaron was completely exasperated by his naivety. What armor? After that, information about the new weapon appeared. A pair of gauntlets made from the essence of extremely venomous centipedes, very hard with the ability to protect the hands and small hard spikes on them. They can be used to attack enemies. Watching Singu put on the gauntlets, Aaron felt a little resigned. No matter how you look at it, it seems more like you're wearing a weapon on your hands. I know the rewards change depending on how you complete the dungeon, but before Aaron could finish, Singu quickly cut in. I can wear these all the time without anyone noticing. Anyway, it's better than fighting barehanded. Aaron happily flew closer to Singu. You're right. From now on, let's find easier dungeons, okay? Singu replied sincerely. Yeah, thank you for worrying about me. Suddenly, the sound of cracking and crumbling echoed, startling Aaron. She frantically rushed over to warn him. The dungeon is collapsing, but he didn't look worried at all. On the contrary, Singu calmly reassured her. It's okay, the exit is right over there. Aaron's mind was in a turmoil as she recalled past events. It's strange. The dungeons in Sky Castle exist almost permanently unless there's a special mission, but all the dungeons in the ant nest disappear after completion. Could it be because they were created by players who have disappeared? Both Aaron and Singu quickly moved towards the light, but her mind was still filled with doubt. In that case, Singu can't farm experience by grinding the same dungeon over and over again. Singu was also lost in his own thoughts. Why is the ant nest so difficult? It's even more confusing than Sky Castle. Layers of rock and soil were falling rapidly. Singu hurriedly said, let's get out and see what this rest area is. Aaron immediately asked, what's wrong? The beam of light from before was like a portal leading them out of the cave. Both of them were safe now. Suddenly, a thought flashed through Singu's mind. He frowned slightly, his expression growing more and more serious. "I see a change," Aaron asked, bewildered. "What do you mean?" They looked up at the sky together. The surrounding scenery was very quiet and peaceful. Singu spoke softly. "The atmosphere. Don't you think it's too quiet?" Aaron didn't quite understand what he meant. "But this is a village on a normal day. Isn't that normal?" Hearing her naive words, Singu rubbed his temples. "Now I'm getting a headache. It's probably not that simple." Suddenly, Aaron flew up, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "What did you say a rest area was?" Singu opened his hand, eagerly showing off his prize. "This key, it's that simple." Aaron looked as bewildered as a deer in headlights, seemingly not understanding at all. "Players in Sky Castle don't have those." Singu turned to look at her with a broad grin. "Are you imagining a hotel or something? They have a whole castle. Maybe the rest area is like the base in Sky Castle." But Aaron seemed uncertain. She rested her chin on her hand, thinking, then offered her opinion. "That sounds right. Sky Castle represents the dungeons, but it's also a base for players from all over the world." She was a little uneasy about someone else being there. "I wonder if there are any other irregular players in the rest area. I don't think anyone else could have reached the ant nest like you." Singu squeezed her hand to soothe her worries. "But if someone else got here first, we might be able to get some information about the ant nest." He pointed to the path ahead with a determined spirit. Let's go right now." Aaron quickly stopped him. "Please take it slow. We should still be a little careful." Suddenly, she had a mind-blowing realization. "Oh, I get it now," but Singu was still clueless. "Get what?" She quickly explained in a low voice. "As long as you hold the key tightly, you'll be invisible. It's hard to use in combat, but it's very useful in daily life." Aaron marveled at its handy function. That's a really convenient feature. But for some reason, he was trembling. She called out to Singu, "Why are you sticking the key into the ground so awkwardly?" He did it for no reason at all. Aaron was truly helpless against this silly boy. "I already told you." Suddenly, a huge hole opened up right there. The two of them were stunned, not understanding what was happening. It was only when they were falling that they started screaming their heads off. "We're falling again!" "Ah!" A sudden blinding light appeared, making it hard for them to see what was ahead. When he looked inside, Singu was completely shocked. What is this?" 4 pieces of information about the rest area. Level 1 door, level 1 bed, level 1 wardrobe, also level 1. System notification. From now on, if you conquer a dungeon but do not use the essence, it will be stored in this piggy bank. You can use the saved essence to expand and upgrade the rest area. Singu laughed triumphantly. "Is this childish little game supposed to be a challenge?" "Aha, I get it now. It looks pretty familiar." His brain started working. This is a common feature in games, a base that supports the player in many ways and can be upgraded for a certain price. However, a problem has now arisen. But if you look closely at the main function of this area, Aaron shared the same thought as him, so to put it bluntly, this is a space for a single individual. His world came crashing down. Singu collapsed to the ground, groaning. Sky Castle is for the masses, while the ant nest is for the solitary. Aaron stood beside him, frowning. "See, I told you so." Even though there wasn't enough room for 2 people, she didn't seem to mind much. "You're the only irregular player here," Singu cried pitifully. "A rest area like this doesn't mean I'm the only one." After calming down, he silently calculated, "But I'm also exhausted after using it 3 times. Punishment! Even though I want to upgrade the rest area, I don't have any monster essence left. If something's too hard, I'll skip it. Prioritize the easy stuff first. I'll sleep on it and figure it out later." "You look pretty tired," so Aaron stopped discussing it. "You should get some rest." Singu saw her just standing there. He asked with concern, "Aren't you going to sleep?" Her face was nonchalant. "I'm not that tired thanks to you." She scratched her cheek shyly. "I was just cheering for you and ignoring that damn soul. Plus, sleeping on that bed feels a little weird." Hearing this, Singu immediately promised, "I'll buy you a dollhouse to sleep in later, okay?" Being pampered, Aaron visibly cheered up. "Okay." In just a few short minutes, Singu was sound asleep, a speed that was truly astonishing. He fell asleep so fast, he was snoring on the bed while Aaron remarked, "I guess the tip about sleep increasing efficiency wasn't a lie?" She stared at him blankly, her heart filled with a tinge of sadness. Singu isn't the only one who needs to train mana for efficiency. Her expression flickered with regret, mixed with acceptance. "In the end, I have to log out because I'm weak. At least I should be grateful I'm still alive." She tried to lift her own spirits. Now that I've become a supporter after losing all my power, I need to increase my mana as much as possible and improve my skills. She was incredibly determined about her new goal. I also have to let Singu focus on combat as much as possible. Recalling her old ultimate moves, Erin felt her fighting spirit ignite. I want to regain all the skills I once had. Singu can certainly overcome most things with his strength alone, but it's never a bad idea to be thoroughly prepared since we're teammates. So she didn't want him to do everything by himself. Singu really acts as if he's the only one here, and I'm nothing more than a bystander. Erin's emotions began to swell. Even though I was once the best healer in Korea, perhaps even the best in the world, her fists clenched, her eyes burning like fire with determination. I'm going to surprise him by regaining my skills. Erin felt dejected. Compared to his absolute power, it was as if he got stronger just by breathing. Then she told herself she had to really try. There's no time to rest. She was keenly aware of what she needed to do, train while he slept to close the gap. After sleeping to the point of exhaustion, Singu groggily opened his eyes. Huh! He glanced around, looking for Erin. Seeing her sleeping so peacefully was quite cute. He didn't have the heart to wake her. He was at a loss with this energetic girl. What can I do? He sighed. She's even more tense than I was when I first entered the dungeon. Singu stood up, cracking his joints and stretching to get ready. Since I can't wake her, I might as well train my mana until she's up. But he didn't need to call her. She stirred awake on her own at the sound. The door opened and light crept into the room. Singu casually walked out. After resting for a full 5 hours, the door still led to the place it had opened from. Erin asked, "What are you planning to do, Singu? Or should we go home?" He shook his head in refusal. "No." Singu strode forward slowly, his voice firm and decisive. "I've rested enough. Besides, I already told my mom I might not be home for a few days." He was so eager his eyes lit up like stars. "Time to find another dungeon," she sighed in resignation. "It's probably not that easy." 10 minutes later, he shouted with glee, "I found it. Item information artisan centipede cave dungeon. Danger level slightly low." They stood there completely frozen. This garbage game, Singu fumed in frustration. "It's the same dungeon." Erin ventured a guess. "I think I understand how this game works now. If a player fails in a dungeon, it weakens their party. It makes other players more likely to die, and those who fall in the same dungeon will do so one after another," she quickly deduced. "That's why there are so many dungeons. They form around the same area. From now on, every time we find a dungeon, we should search the surrounding area carefully." Singu's jaw dropped in surprise. What a creepy way to find dungeons. He felt a chill in his heart. One life for one dungeon. He transformed and commanded, "We need to finish this quickly." She trotted behind, thinking only that he was getting even faster. "I'm getting scared too." At Ant Cave number 184, the Artisan Centipede Cave, the completion limit was 5 hours. Singu carefully observed the surroundings. The area number is still the same. He shouldered his hammer and advanced inside. "So this number isn't the quantity of dungeons, but the type of dungeon," Singu remarked to Erin. "That means there are at least 183 others." Suddenly, a phantom appeared. She clung to him in fear. "There's a spirit over there." Singu stepped forward, reaching out a hand to touch it. "Is that really a person?" Singu lost his patience and got straight to the point. "Now give me the quest." She looked utterly bewildered. Singu switched to intimidation mode. "I know everything, so just give me the quest." She trembled and stammered, "Let me give it to you." Over the next 3 days, Singu conquered 6 centipede dungeons, bravely charging into the hordes of monsters. The door was suddenly opened from the outside. It turned out to be Singu and Erin, who had returned after the arduous task of completing the dungeon. It left her utterly exhausted, and she whined tearfully, "I want to take a shower so badly." But he disagreed, reminding her, "We need to go home immediately. But first, let's rest here for a little while." Only then was Erin satisfied with this arrangement. At least that sounds more like what a player would do. Meanwhile, Singu was thinking about the centipedes he had just annihilated. "I wonder if there are any more centipede dungeons left." But she answered wearily, "I don't want to see another centipede ever again." Feeling a bit tired himself, he plopped down onto the soft bed a moment later. Singu focused his mind to summon the information panel. Time for a check. First status. The panel displayed data about him. Player Singu level 25, strength 132, agility 131. He read the information projected before his eyes. Singu couldn't help but smile, feeling incredibly pleased, but it seemed he still wasn't satisfied. If only I could raise my poison resistance a little more. Aaron suddenly burst into tears. I know some players let themselves get attacked on purpose to level up their skills, but I didn't think you would do that too. To be honest, Singu didn't see it as a big deal. If I have the skill, I should at least get hurt a few times to train it quickly, but I won't do it if you can't heal me. Despite his reasoning, she still wanted to object. That's when I'm useful, but I don't like it one bit. Then he recalled the times he had used that ability in combat. Poison resistance is a good skill at level 4. I can move around comfortably inside a poison mist or after getting hit by a poison ray. Not only that, he continued, and after level 5, the boss centipede's poison only caused a slight tingling sensation. Hearing that, Aaron nonchalantly shot down his pipe dream. You'll certainly be stronger if you train more, but by that time, there probably won't be any centipede dungeons left to train in. Following her helpful advice, he quickly shifted his focus to other skills. What about Mana Bullet and Charge? Then he began to analyze how to level up those abilities. It's not through training or quest rewards, but from the souls I met in the dungeons. It even clarified the requirements. Their quests differ in both content and rewards. Even though he understood them well, he insisted that he still felt the skills didn't completely belong to him. Aaron agreed with Singu's perspective, because you haven't inherited their senses yet. At the same time, she enthusiastically explained the mechanics of the abilities he wanted to upgrade. It will take time to imprint their memories completely into your body, but both are definitely good skills. This will help Singu understand that not everything can be mastered quickly. You won't learn it easily. Not content to sit still, he started to investigate. Charge is a skill that uses mana to accelerate oneself, and that's not all. This skill also changes the properties of other skills when combined, but because that is its greatest effect, not everyone can use it proficiently. He realized it himself. But to use other skills while in a charge state, I need to learn to control the flow of mana more proficiently. It will be very difficult at my current level. Noticing the difficulty Singu was having with leveling his ability, Aaron gave a suggestion to help her teammate think in a different direction. What about Mana Bullet? It's an upgraded version of the Smite Throw skill. She continued to explain the skill she had just proposed. The mechanism is also to fire mana. You accumulate it in front of you, but instead of throwing a weapon, you just shoot out the mana. Its destructive power is weaker than Smite, but it's much faster. To use it proficiently, you need to learn how to separate mana from an object. Many players who get used to this skill will find artifacts to support it and become marksmen. This is a very rare skill, but it's strange that they were able to obtain it. As she recalled the legends of a bygone era, a question about the souls in the dungeon suddenly occurred to Aaron. Could it be that they were famous players when they were alive, but even they couldn't clear a level 10 dungeon? She tried to push that negative thought away and turned back. She smiled and spoke cheerfully to him. If you master their skills, I'm sure they'll be grateful. Yet Singu pretended not to care. I don't care if they're grateful or not. To stop Aaron from rambling on, he tried to distract her. Besides that artifact I got from the dungeon after offering the boss Centipede's essence was a set of armor combined with gauntlets. Right. It turned out Singu was wearing that very armor. Venomous chaotic insect armor rank D+, defense 550 to 850. Proficiency 27 out of 200. Special traits unknown. That's just its basic data. There's still more detailed information about the armor's characteristics. The armor is made from the essence of a highly venomous centipede. It's very durable and still contains residual poison from when the centipede was alive. Having experienced the capabilities of the venomous insect chaos armor firsthand, Singu had every reason to exclaim, "This armor is awesome." Of course, I'm not sure either since you've never been poisoned after wearing it because the armor has an incredibly useful effect for fighting in dungeons. That's why most players would try to complete the full set, but we don't even know how many more centipede dungeons there are. I'm not planning on testing my luck. A moment later, Singu no longer wanted to bother with those things and was more excited about something else because the centipede dungeon was all cleared. Now I need to check what I can do with the remaining essence in the rest area. Seeing his excitement, she felt extremely concerned. So she reluctantly replied, "You really are amazing." Unlike Aaron, he noticed a change in his physical condition. I was already healthy, but I haven't slept for days and I'm still full of energy. It must be thanks to sleeping on this bed. And so Singu touched the bed that had been with him all this time and declared I have to upgrade the bed first. But things didn't go that smoothly. A notification panel popped up before his eyes to upgrade furniture. You must first upgrade the rest area. He thought it wouldn't cost much, but reality dealt Singu a painful blow. You can use 80% of your saved essence to upgrade to level 2. Do you wish to upgrade? After reading the notification, he felt like he didn't want to live anymore. His vacant gaze stared into the distance. Only after a while did Singu find the mood to scream, I have to use a whole 80% of my essence just to upgrade the rest area. No matter what, he had to grit his teeth and face the reality that he wouldn't be able to upgrade. The bed with the remaining 20% of essence with extreme disappointment. Singu could only lament in despair. I had to collect essence from 5 different dungeons, you know. Not knowing how to comfort him, she could only reply, maybe that's why the rest area is so valuable. Seeing it as the only viable option, he had no choice but to accept. It seems there's no other way. Suddenly, the golden piggy bank in the rest area emitted a dazzlingly bright light before their eyes. At that moment, the room began to shake violently. Making it nearly impossible for Singu and Arin to stand firm. They lost their balance and almost fell when the shaking stopped. A notification appeared. The rest area is now at level 2. The area has increased. Therefore, many amenities have been developed with the upgrade of the rest area. A level 1 bathroom has been added, and it wasn't just a normal addition by the system. The level 1 bathroom can be used for bathing, and the system was even thoughtful enough to include shower gel and soap with the special effect of washing away any poison. Curses or other harmful effects on the body, he couldn't hide the joy on his face as he observed the new bathroom. I could just live here, and she felt the same way. Upgrading the rest area was worth every penny. He couldn't be more satisfied. Singu scratched his head and exclaimed, I was so tired of going back and forth between home and the dungeons. So this is amazing. Arin also strongly agreed with him. That's right. I can't keep living like a doll in a dollhouse. I'm going to take a bath first. Seeing her joy, he didn't want to spoil her mood, so he only thought to himself, this rest area is sized for humans, so it might be difficult for Arin to use, huh? While he was lost in his wandering thoughts, Singu was chased out by Arin. How long are you going to stand there? He immediately replied, sorry. In the bathroom, Arin's body was covered by a thin layer of steam as she let out a sigh of immense satisfaction. Unlike Singu's guess, she quickly mastered using the bathroom by choosing to soak in a water ladle. Knowing he couldn't help, he had to give up. I'm sure she'll manage on her own. A new notification suddenly appeared, causing Singu to freeze for a few seconds, Then he began to read the data written on it. A level 1 detector can be created, wanting to help the player better understand the item. The thoughtful system provided more information, explaining that the detector can find nearby dungeons using essence. That has been saved. But nothing is free, and of course items cannot be obtained easily. You can create a detector by using 50% of your remaining essence. Do you wish to continue? Although he hadn't seen the item in person, he was already imagining all sorts of things. A detector, It might even be better than the bathroom then. Singu quickly laid out a plan for the future with this item. If I didn't have the rest area or hadn't upgraded it with essence, I would have wasted a ton of time traveling. Without a long wait, the small detector appeared and fit snugly in his palm. When holding the item in hand, its information panel will appear. To guide the player on how to use it, the detector can be activated for 3 minutes by using 10 essence, which made Singu gasp in surprise. It's surprisingly cheap, Nix. The system explained how to distinguish the colors that appear on the detector based on your level. Blue is easy, yellow is normal, and red is hard. With such dedicated and detailed guidance from the system, he quickly understood all the information and how to use it. I get it. Suddenly, the phone in his pocket vibrated to notify its owner of an incoming call, startling Singu so much he almost dropped the detector. Even Arin, who was soaking in the bath, could hear the sound. So she couldn't help but wonder a call. Meanwhile, in the outer room, he was completely stunned by what he saw on his phone. This is... Singu looked at the caller's name and involuntarily broke out in a cold sweat. Anxiously answering the phone, Mom, a familiar voice came from the other end of the line. That's right, son. You're not in Sanha right now, are you? Hearing that, his heart sank. Those are the coordinates of the dungeon. It's because of this precise positioning ability. So he replied with the affectionate nickname Momdar, but it seems Hajin was calling to ask for a favor. Okay, then. A friend of mine has a shop there. I'll send you the address, so please go and save her. Singu was stunned before he could even process the information. It seems she got worried after seeing the news and hurriedly called her son. You can do it right. They look really weak on TV, or are you not strong enough to fight those grotesque monsters? Hajin had also looked into the situation. All the players, or whatever, are in Sky City, so no one can get there. On the other hand, Singu was still frozen stiff. Seeing her son so dazed, she immediately understood. You'll get it if you check the news or the internet. He reacted quickly and went online to search. Just then, the bathroom door suddenly opened. Aaron, having washed up cleanly, was in an incredibly cheerful mood. "Phew, thank you for the new clothes." When Singu turned, he saw that he had already put on his helmet and announced, "There's an urgent mission, we have to go. The monsters have come into this world." The news hit her like a bolt from the blue. When at this critical moment, the detector suddenly started beeping loudly. New dungeon detected. Singu unhesitatingly tossed it aside. Focusing on the current mission in an instant, the silhouette of a delivery motorcycle was speeding down the street. Seeing he had no intention of stopping, Aaron quickly reminded him. "The light is still red," but the only reply was a commanding voice, "Hold on tight." Singu even ignored the traffic signs. Speeding past the legal limit, she helplessly advised, "You'll get a fine and have your license revoked." He then showed her what a true street racer was. "I already took off the license plate, so it's fine." Aaron couldn't imagine he would do something so crazy. "You're breaking the law. A model citizen shouldn't do that." Singu deliberately ignored those words. He focused on observing the surroundings. The closer they got to the destination, the fewer cars and people there were. It seems people have already evacuated this area. As for her, she just now remembered the heart of the matter. Are they really monsters? "Monsters from Sky City can't leave the dungeons." He voiced a speculation that startled Aaron a bit. "They must have come from the ant nest based on my years of experience." She had never seen a situation like this before. Sky City has existed for 10 years. And no monster has ever escaped, so why do you think it's only happening now? But that perspective made her reconsider. It can't be so. It's because of the ant nest. Singu had thought very carefully to find the most logical reason, even though he didn't want to believe it. He felt that way too. He analyzed, based on what he had seen, if monsters had simply appeared, I wouldn't have suspected anything, but right when I discovered a dungeon in Sanatown. Monsters also appeared there. It's too much of a coincidence to be called random. From that, a conclusion can definitely be drawn. I'm just not sure if it's because of me. But the ant nest is definitely related. Besides that, there's another unanswered question. What about the other players? Aaron seriously offered her reasoning. "There's no need to rush. Oh, she suddenly remembered something and exclaimed happily. "Today's auction day. It's the auction day in Heavenly City. Based on that key point, it's easy to guess. Most players are in Heavenly City, and since electronic devices aren't working, they wouldn't know what's happening." Singu quickly grasped the details of the situation. "Got it. If we string all the information together, it means there's a possibility that someone deliberately caused this to happen today." A sense of unease washed over him. Perhaps similar things are happening in other places too. Suddenly, Aaron shouted a warning. "Look, there are people over there." The road ahead of them was blocked off with tape. Police officers stood outside, repeatedly giving orders. "Stop the vehicle! There are monsters here!" Singu quickly made a decisive choice, revving the engine to full throttle and distributing his mana. A police officer saw this and got annoyed, not understanding what he was trying to do. In the end, the daredevil Singu performed a stunt, launching the motorcycle like an eagle, spreading its wings, soaring over the heads of the people below. This time, Aaron experienced a heart-stopping moment thanks to Singu. "Do you really know how to ride this thing?" He just calmly and confidently affirmed, "Of course. Any man can ride one as long as they don't get hurt." Even more surprisingly, he skillfully jumped off the bike, letting it fly straight into a portal to his inventory. This scene truly made the onlookers' jaws drop. The motorcycle just vanished. That person's a player. Finally, Singu landed coolly in the cordoned-off area. The police, just snapping out of their shock, hurriedly raised their guns to subdue him. "Raise your hands!" But in just a split second, he had taken off his helmet and dashed away. So fast that they only saw an afterimage. Singu's mind was on high alert now, his sixth sense extremely sharp. "I can feel it. The monsters are on the ground, and the screams of people calling for help." Aaron, after observing for a moment, also shouted an announcement. "Singu, look, there really are monsters." The scene before them was horrific. The bodies of civilians were scattered everywhere. One person was even being tortured by a goblin. Suddenly it stopped, as if it sensed something unusual. It slowly turned its head, revealing a grotesque face and eyes filled with bloodlust. Aaron happened to meet that vicious gaze and couldn't help but shudder. "Ugh," she exclaimed in horror after recognizing what they were. "Goblins, they're the most terrifying type of monster for civilians to face." Hearing that, Singu's blood boiled and he gritted his teeth in indignation. Just as I thought. He had been wondering when he would run into them. The goblin, having spotted the two of them, roared threateningly. He remained calm, slowly picking up a stone from right under his feet. Then, taking a step to build momentum, he took aim. The decisive, powerful throw was like a gunshot, easily blowing the monster's head off in a single move. Aaron's eyes widened in disbelief yet again. "Have you played baseball before?" Singu, radiating main character energy, boasted proudly, "Back in the army, I used to chase away wild boars with these." Recalling that time felt like it was only yesterday's memory. "This will be our dinner tonight." Back in the present, he had gathered a small mountain of rocks. "All right, you bastards, because I'm fully loaded." With that, Singu took a deep breath, as deep as he possibly could. Then he let out a thunderous shout, louder than a public megaphone, seemingly powerful enough to rupture the eardrums of anyone nearby. This successfully drew the attention of the goblins. They stopped what they were doing and began searching for the source of the sound, while Aaron, caught off guard, felt dizzy with stars spinning around her head. "You could have at least given me a warning." The system suddenly displayed a notification. "Skill acquired, activate battle cry level 1. A charge-inducing shout that has an agitating effect. Released through mana, this shout generates aggro towards the user. The greater the disparity between intelligence and magic, the more effective this skill becomes." At this point, Singu's fighting spirit reached its peak. He directly roared a declaration of war. "Come on out, you monsters!" Singu suddenly thought of a scenario where he had a mission to rescue someone. The failure rate would be very high. If the hostage is already dead, then it's game over. He felt a little insecure. "I've never been good at finding hidden things for assassinations, but my wild school days left quite an impression on the teachers. To hell with school. Are you the one who broke the window? Maybe this could be considered an achievement of sorts. I'm actually really good at causing trouble." After a few seconds of reminiscence, Singu's fighting spirit surged even higher. "I mean, if I just kill all the monsters, everything will be fine." At that moment, the goblins heard the declaration of war and swarmed out from the nearby buildings. One holding a sword took the initiative and charged forward, laughing scornfully. "Ha ha, you're just a human!" Aaron, seeing him just standing there calmly, became extremely anxious. "What are you doing?" "They're coming this way!" Singu's eyes were filled with confidence as he replied, "It's all according to my plan." She had been listening but still didn't understand what was going on. "What plan?" Immediately, Singu built momentum and threw 3 stones that flew at the speed of light. In just one go, he easily took off the heads of 2 enemies. But suddenly something pierced him. It made him pause. He looked down and saw a small piece of metal stuck right in his jacket. Singu pulled it out to inspect it and found it had a sharp tip coated with a strange liquid. "A needle!" He observed it and muttered to himself, "That green liquid?" The sharp-eyed Aaron quickly recognized it as poison. Looking over at the goblins, she could see them cackling, thinking he was about to kick the bucket from that attack. Singu then did the unexpected, poking his own finger with the needle several times. She seriously thought this guy was insane. "What are you doing?" The system then displayed a notification. "You have been poisoned by a mild numbing venom. Level 5 poison resistance will nullify the effect." Seeing this, he gloated with delight. I'm completely fine." Aaron felt completely helpless with this guy. Was it really necessary to test it like that? Now I have definitive test results. This further solidified Singu's thoughts. "My armor can't cover everything. When there are more goblins, I'll have to change tactics. But if poison resistance can protect me..." He picked up a stone and exclaimed excitedly, "Then I don't need to worry anymore." Aaron, who hadn't been able to help at all, couldn't help but blame herself. "Why do I feel so useless?" As he casually threw a rock through an enemy's body, he gently comforted his companion. "You can try to help me." Seeing their comrades continuously getting wrecked, their heads falling like harvested wheat, they finally started to feel fear. "He has too much mana, he's killing our brothers." But with unshakable conviction, they launched a volley of poisoned darts in a counterattack. "Die, human!" Singu used his masterful skills, standing perfectly still while his arms moved with lightning speed. Afterwards, all the needles were nestled in his palm. "Is that all you've got?" Immediately, they were all sent on a trip together, to meet their maker without even a chance for last words. With a murderous expression, he held a mountain of rocks, preparing for a massacre. "Weaklings like you only know how to sneak attack." Singu, his contempt visible, shouted defiantly, "Even fantasy novels skip over you guys to get straight to the archdemons." This move successfully provoked the goblins. They angrily refused to admit inferiority. "We are strong. We can even defeat archdemons." This reaction was exactly as he had planned. The taunt was a success. Waiting for just that, Singu threw stones continuously like a machine gun. Any enemy that appeared was doomed. Now I just have to kill the ones peeking out. One by one, the goblins fell to the ground, gradually dissolving and blowing away in the wind. He glanced around and breathed a sigh of relief. I think this area is safe now. Aaron could also relax a little. Luckily, even though they were smart enough to use tools, they were still foolish enough to fall for your taunts. Suddenly, a sound rang out that made her jump in fright. Help! Help me! Singu immediately raised his guard. A girl needed saving. Following the direction of the voice, they saw a heavily injured Sumin lying on the ground. He quickly approached to do a preliminary check. She had been hit by a poisoned dart, but more seriously, the wound on her arm that was bleeding non-stop caught his attention. A bite mark on her arm. Were they trying to eat you? She calmly recounted what had happened. They just attacked me, as if I were food. Hearing this, Singu gritted his teeth in anger. That's not right. That doesn't sound like goblins at all. Suddenly, Aaron's questioning pulled him back to reality. Why, what kind of creatures are goblins? It was as if she could read his mind. Every word hit its mark. Are you thinking about that adult stuff where they kidnap women for breeding? Singu was so embarrassed he could have had a nosebleed. He deliberately ignored her and said to Sumin, I can't fight while I'm protecting you. But the buildings are safe now, so find a place to hide and relax, okay? His sharp gaze frightened her, and she agreed, okay. She then pointed out the location of the other people, over there. There are still a lot of monsters over there, and many people are trapped. With this information, Singu prepared to take action. Thanks, but as he turned his head, he saw a horde of goblins as numerous as an army charging toward them. The timid Aaron panicked. A whole swarm is running over here. What do we do now? We're out of rocks. He calmly clenched his fist, tensing his body and focusing power into his punch. If we're out of rocks, he slammed a powerful fist into the ground, instantly creating fissures, then I'll just make more. Faster than an X could turn on you. The stones flew one after another, taking the lives of the goblins, but it seemed like keeping this up wasn't a good strategy. I need a stronger bombardment. Singu was impatient, wanting to wipe them out quickly. That move isn't effective in an open area, Aaron cleverly suggested. What about Mana Bullet? You haven't thought of that. Oh, I forgot. Singu immediately took a stance, firing a blinding beam of energy from his finger that directly hit one of the goblins. Surprisingly, it didn't take any serious damage, just got stunned with a bump on its face. Singu's hopes were dashed, and he sighed in frustration. It's even weaker than throwing rocks. Aaron awkwardly rushed to explain, it's not that the skill is weak, it's that you're too strong. Suddenly, a goblin appeared, letting out a roar that shook the heavens and the earth. Singu was startled, a chill running down his spine. That roar sounded different. From up high, Saba jumped down from the roof of a nearby building. His massive frame shattered the ground upon landing. The system immediately popped up a notification. A high-level monster, the veteran goblin, has appeared. This time, a look of concern was evident on Singu's face. Oh, I knew it. Compared to him, Saba was on a whole other level, colossal in size with an overwhelming, powerful aura. This is not good. Saba's expression was furious, as if he wanted to eat them both alive. Aaron, looking at his strange form, wondered, he looks way stronger than the other goblins. That's not the main problem here. What is it? Aaron asked, confused. A system warning message flashed by. If it survives past the time limit, the dungeon will collapse and the boss monster will wreak havoc. What a mess. His face darkened as he calculated his next move. I have to defeat it and clear the dungeon before it's too late. Saba looked at the defeated goblins at his feet, unable to hide his admiration. You are a very strong human, he said painfully, watching his kind disappear. You killed my soldiers just by throwing rocks. Enraged, Saba was determined to make him pay and get justice for the goblins. But don't think you can kill me that way. Singu, playfully tossing a stone in his hand, agreed with him. You're right, I don't think I can kill you with a stone either. Yeah, probably not. Saba was extremely irritated by his attitude. Are you a player? Singu held his weapon, challenging, come and find out. He then sped forward using his charge skill to eliminate Saba, who only had time to be surprised. The manifestation of his power was violent, yet filled with a warrior's spirit. Caught off guard, Saba took a devastating blow. The force of the Black Wolf's claw strike shattered the weapon in his hand. Singu's face hardened, his lips curling into a sneer as he mocked all bark and no bite. Aaron, meanwhile, gave a strained laugh as she watched the brutal scene, figuring it was perfectly normal for him to destroy the goblin since he had once annihilated high-level centipedes without using any mana. Suddenly, her eyes flickered as she sensed something was wrong. Filled with fear, she pointed and shouted, "Singu, look!" He followed her gaze, confused. Huh? Abruptly, a black hole appeared in the sky, pulling in everything within its reach. The goblins were no exception, screaming hopelessly, "We're being sucked in because of that human." The pull from the black hole grew stronger, dragging all of them inside. A moment later, it vanished as if nothing had ever happened. At that moment, a system notification sound broke the silence. "The monsters have been sealed back inside the dungeon, but if you fail to find and conquer it in time, they will break the seal once more." The system continued its warning to Singu, activating the dungeon. Time remaining 4 hours. He stared speechlessly at the countdown timer on the screen. Ha ha! He unconsciously touched the pouch at his hip. Such perfect coordination. "I feel like I'm in a game where other people's lives are on the line." He was incredibly annoyed at being jerked around like this. He felt like he was being played a prank on, which was amusing in its own way. Erin clasped her hands to her chest, her face full of worry. "I can't believe monsters are appearing even in Sky Castle. I've never heard of this happening before." His gaze grew colder as he realized what she meant. A memory fragment returned to him. Back then, when Sky Castle and the dungeons first appeared, people were terrified of monsters showing up on the surface. That was the player's motivation as well. Erin mused worriedly about the existence of ancient races. But everyone has completely forgotten about those things. For the past 10 years, Sky Castle, the dungeons, and the monsters have just been a way for a select few superhumans to get money and power. She covered her face, utterly horrified, trying to find a reason to explain this. "But why now? Is it really because you became an unregistered player? But who would do that?" Singu sighed helpless in the face of her wild thoughts. He gently placed his finger on Erin's head to calm her down, then suddenly gave her a playful flick on the forehead. "Thinking so much will give you a headache. Don't try to ponder things that have no answer." Erin's heart ached as she thought of the sight of bodies strewn about. People have been injured, and in the future, many more people will be injured. Many will surely struggle. He wagged his finger to make his point. "But just worrying won't solve a thing. We just have to do what we can." With a heavy heart, Erin sighed. "You make everything sound so easy." She put her hands on her hips and spoke. "You're at the center of everything, yet you're so strangely calm." Singu paid it no mind, but it's the truth. He then put his weapon away into a different dimension. "If I clear the dungeon on time, then the goblins won't show up again. All I need to think about is that. I'll rest after it's done." Singu was incredibly excited, cracking his knuckles as he prepared to act. "But first let me collect the essence." Helpless Erin could only fly after him. "Singu, I don't know what to say anymore." She looked at Saba's still corpse with disappointment. "But looking at them, they don't have any essence." He was utterly stunned by this information. "Huh!" Singu stood frozen, staring at the still corpse. "I thought monster corpses give off a specific energy until they are looted, but this body has nothing. Although I do feel a different type of mana inside their bodies." He swung his arm and punched right into its stomach to check. Singu repeatedly punched different spots on Saba's body. "To check here? What about here?" Witnessing this, Erin could only laugh awkwardly. "Looks like we can't get anything from it." As if he sensed something strange inside the body. "Huh?" Something near its heart is glowing. Erin couldn't immediately figure it out. "What is that?" Singu opened his hand toward her, revealing the object he was holding. "Is this also a kind of essence? It's blue." Erin flew closer, staring intently as if trying to recall information about it. "A crystal, a blue crystal." Realizing the power it contained, she exclaimed excitedly. "Even though there isn't much, I can clearly feel the mana inside. This is a type of mana crystal I've never seen before." She looked at the other goblins with regret. "But I can't feel it in any of the other monster corpses. Maybe they only drop from high-level monsters." He was becoming impatient. "In that case, I'm done with these dead goblins, and we don't have time to waste." Erin suddenly froze, realizing there was a strange noise nearby. The people below were cheering, celebrating. "The monsters are gone." It was a player, right? But elsewhere, some of the injured were crying out for assistance. Help us, I can't move, my leg is in so much pain." Erin shyly asked Singu, "What are you planning to do?" Singu gave a firm answer. "Someone else will definitely come to help them." Singu calmly and confidently pulled a helmet from his storage space. "The police or the army will come to handle the situation. Ambulances will arrive too. But I don't want to get involved with the government or other players." He put on his helmet, gave her a wink to follow. "More importantly, we need to clear that dungeon in time." Singu struck a cool pose. He summoned a vehicle to get to the next spot. A pack of reporters, like hungry tigers, rushed him for information. Wait, I'm from Top Daily News. Please give us a few words. The press's silly questions couldn't stop Singu. Such was the fiery spirit of the world-saving Singu. But have you located the dungeon yet? From his pocket, Aaron replied, clearly I have. He zoomed away on his vehicle, leaving many dazed eyes watching him. What do we do now? Was that a delivery bike? The system displayed a notification dungeon. Goblin Barracks. Difficulty easy. Time limit 3 hours, 54 minutes, and 3 seconds. Singu quickly found the pyramid. It was the guide to the dungeon, but the scene around it was strewn with human bodies. Aaron looked left and right, worriedly observing. They must be the workers from this site. He, on the other hand, calmly assessed the situation, realizing the monsters must have originated from this area. With that many goblins, it's no surprise that no one survived. The desolate scene before her made her feel a pang of sadness, thinking if this were a game or a movie. The main character would have shown up and killed all the monsters before any casualties. Hearing this, Singu awkwardly scratched his head and clumsily comforted his teammate no matter how fast we kill the monsters. There's no guarantee there won't be casualties. We should just do what we can. As he finished speaking, his gaze turned serious as he looked into the distance, telling himself that the police or the army would surely arrive soon. So I need to hurry up. He then used the tail of chaos, slamming it repeatedly into the ground, creating large cracks, and immediately after a bright light appeared. It was as dazzling as the light of the Buddhas of the 10 directions. The system announced once more, Ant Nest Area, 201 Goblin Encampment time limit, 3 hours, 54 minutes, and 14 seconds. Awaiting them was still a long hallway and a door. The entrance was a deep abyss. The familiar notification and the waiting room were just like in other dungeons. He had feared that monsters or a boss would be waiting here. Suddenly, Aaron, trembling from behind, called out to Singu. He quickly turned around to see what was wrong. She frantically pointed towards the pitch-black entrance where a white figure was approaching. I see a spirit. Seeing this, he became excited. Good, let's ask it what it knows. Bo Chun's figure gradually became clear. He took the initiative to ask, "Are you a player?" Singu looked toward the source of the voice, startled as he realized something was unusual. Bo Chun was actually leading a mob of fierce-looking goblins brandishing weapons. Suddenly, his attitude did a 180-degree turn as he roared in anger. "You are players, the ones who abandoned me." Frightened, Aaron quickly backed away. Oh, but Singu was thrilled, tightly gripping the black wolf's claw in his hand, ready to fight. He's definitely on the goblin's side now. This is the first time I've seen something like this. The more Bo Chun spoke, the angrier he got, causing a ruckus and shouting loudly. "I was supposed to be the greatest, but I died because of you. Why did I have to die? Why did you sacrifice me?" Seeing his murderous expression, he made a sarcastic remark. Look at his eyes. He might be about to shoot a beam of light. Aaron worried that if he kept running his mouth, something would definitely happen. He really will do it. So please don't jinx it. Several minutes had passed, and he was still rambling on, cursing. "I should have lived! How dare you! You should have died instead of me!" Singu's head ached from listening. He sighed in exasperation. What a speech. She didn't understand why he was just flying around. Suddenly, Bo Chun raised his voice, emphasizing every word. It was as if he'd hit a nerve. Most players feel they are privileged, but some truly believe they are the most special. That statement made Singu reflect seriously. No, there's an important difference between him and me. While I believe others can be special just like me, he considers himself the only special one. By putting others down. While he was lost in thought, the guy continued to vent his resentment. "You bastards! You left me to die. I hate players. I'm going to kill them all." He decisively turned back and ordered the goblins behind him, "That person over there. Kill him." They had been waiting for this moment, and like a disturbed beehive, they screamed, "Let's break this place and get out." He watched the scene of the goblins just daring to stand in the cave, shouting loudly, speechless. The number of goblins around him was increasing, but it seemed they couldn't enter the waiting room. "They're just glaring at us." Suddenly, Singu thought of something. He curiously asked Aaron why players who logged out reappeared as spirits in the ant nest, but she didn't really have a clear answer. "I don't know either." He thought about the prospect of the Sky Castle being banned and speculated if we stop players from entering dungeons and ensure no one has to log out, then there won't be any more ant nests. He confidently asserted that the monster overflow phenomenon would no longer happen, but Aaron shook her head, extinguishing his budding idea. "That's impossible. That's..." She calmly explained the root of the problem. Just by entering a dungeon, people can earn a huge amount of money with a currency so harmless that not even the U.S. government can stop it. Singu could only listen silently to her lecture. Do you think you can control all that greed? Besides, right now, you're the only one who knows that the players are connected to the monster overflow phenomenon. She looked towards the hungry, waiting goblins. She pondered with a heavy heart until we find a way to convince everyone we have no choice but to deal with him ourselves. The boss room can be opened at any time, but he immediately objected, smiling cheerfully as if he'd just had a new idea. No, let's just leave him be. Aaron's eyes widened in surprise. This decision was too unusual for his normal personality. Singu casually asked in return, things like this will happen again. Right, she replied hesitantly, full of doubt, yes. So he bluntly pointed at the goblins and explained it doesn't matter if they evolve or merge. I still need to test every possibility while I can still handle dungeons like this. Then he flashed a charmingly handsome smile so Aaron would trust his words. That way we'll be better prepared to deal with it later. She was stunned by his completely convincing logic, already easily swayed by the handsome guy. She thought for a moment, then replied, I understand, although I'm also worried about how you just rush into things like this. But then with a look that seemed to see right through him, she directly exposed the truth. You're just saying that because you find this dungeon too boring, right? Caught, Singu awkwardly looked away. Do you have a mind-reading skill or something? Aaron immediately yelled at him. It's because you're too predictable. Bo Chun, who could only stand opposite and listen to their conversation, gritted his teeth and uttered, You people are really? Finishing his sentence, he let out a mournful and furious roar. His eyes gradually turned bloodshot, and he turned to grab the two nearest goblins, causing them to scream in terror. Without hesitation, Bo Chun bared his sharp teeth, preparing to eat the monsters alive. Singu was stunned by this action. The crunching sound of chewing rang out, leaving him frozen in place. Seeing the brutal scene, Aaron was terrified, covering her mouth to stop herself from trembling uncontrollably. Suddenly, the system issued a notification. The vengeful spirit is going berserk. If you don't stop it before it awakens by absorbing the energy of other monsters, you will have to face a stronger enemy. Singu, happier than a new father, jumped up in excitement. Awesome Aaron, however, was extremely annoyed and asked, Why are you so happy? He used the warning as an excuse, saying everything was going just as he wanted, which made her irritable. She pointed to the other side and yelled, Do you see that? Along with the tragic screams were the incessant sounds of devouring as Bo Chun grew larger with every goblin he ate. But the block-headed Singu remained stubborn. Not understanding the seriousness of the situation, you gain weight when you eat, that's all. Annoyed and fed up, Aaron put her hand to her forehead. Are you serious? He once again sank into his own thoughts. I'm more interested in why the goblins are letting him eat them. The other spirits I've met. All hated monsters. Seeing him frantically devouring them made him even more confused. But he looks like he's tamed the goblins. Suddenly a warning appeared from the system. The vengeful spirit has had its first awakening and become an evil spirit. If it awakens again, it will break out of the dungeon's scope and enter the waiting room, as if waiting for just that. Singu shouted loudly, declaring war on the enemy. Great, come on over! At that moment, Bo Chun's entire body radiated an extremely powerful energy. When he turned around, he was completely enhanced, surrounded by a brilliant red aura of power. He thoughtfully observed the creature and made a serious assessment. A hybrid of a goblin and a spirit, I see. This was in complete contrast to Aaron's utter panic. Oh no, even though he had gained power far superior to before. Bo Chun was not yet satisfied. It's still not enough, far from enough. As if afraid the game was too easy, Singu deliberately added fuel to the fire. I agree, you're still far too lacking. As expected, the habit of taunting and provoking opponents was deeply ingrained in his blood. Come on, is that all you've got? These words successfully caught the creature's attention. He didn't stop there, continuing to trash talk. You've still got goblins inside you, right? Come back after you've eaten your fill. Aaron was officially so scared, her face contorted, unable to understand if this troublemaker had a death wish or something. A set of sharp teeth scooped up the entire mob of goblins. Hearing the continuous chewing sound, Singu let out a bored yawn and a sigh. He slightly opened his eyes to look at the time displayed on his phone. He couldn't stop muttering must be an appetizer. It's only been 5 minutes and he's eaten hundreds of them. Seeing this, Aaron beside him was trembling with rage. She used all her strength to shout into Singu's ear. He's eaten 1,000 goblins already. What if he eats them all and gets even stronger? He put a hand up to clean his ear and replied nonchalantly, but it's still not enough. This statement left her utterly astonished. What? At that moment, his demeanor turned serious. Beside him, an image of the great Saba appeared. The first awakening or something else is what allowed him to reach. He's at the level of a high-rank goblin, so he needs to get a bit stronger for a good fight. After saying that, Singu's expression brightened, and he's even clearing this dungeon for me, Aaron. Behind him, unable to process it all, she could only hold her head and exclaim, what a headache. Suddenly, a notification appeared. The vengeful spirit has become an evil spirit. Immediately, his eyes flashed with sparks of excitement. There it is. A series of cracking sounds echoed as Bo Chun tensed up and roared loudly. His indistinct legs were slowly advancing towards him. He fixed his gaze forward. Unable to hide the excitement on his face, he entered the waiting room. Aaron beside him said urgently, he has already surpassed the dungeon's limit. He looked at the small person in front of him. The creature sneered, "You've been waiting too long, player." As he spoke, a fireball appeared in the palm of his hand, witnessing this scene. Singu was astonished as if he didn't think he could do that. Magic Aaron guessed, it must be because he ate the goblins that he has magic. On the opposite side, Bo Chun's eyes flashed with a murderous glint. "I will kill you." As soon as the words left his mouth, the fireball that was in his hand shot towards him. The aura it emitted was incredibly powerful. Unintimidated, he stood defiantly to face the challenge. Bring it on. The creature's resentful gaze seemed like it could shoot out 1,000 daggers. Singu's hand gripped his weapon, his words carrying a hint of disappointment that his opponent wasn't as he had hoped. "You're still too weak. Are you kidding me?" He unleashed a move, clashing directly with the incoming attack and causing it to bounce back, a taste of his own medicine. Bo Chun took the full force of the attack he had just launched. Cries of pain escaped his mouth non-stop. He hadn't expected this was all the guy could manage. "You ate a whole bunch of imps and you're still this weak." Saying that, he turned towards Aaron, still feeling uncertain. "Besides, if I infused my weapon with mana, maybe I could also attack with magic." She, witnessing this scene beside him, felt a bit helpless. "You did all that and you still don't know." Bo Chun, on the other side, was stunned by the blow, not expecting to be beaten so miserably. Suddenly, as if waking up, he used his hands to pat out the embers on his body. He turned his back and ran towards the cave entrance, not forgetting to leave a threat to salvage the last scene. "I will return when I'm stronger." This made Singu a little disappointed, letting out a sigh. Aaron looked at the figure that had just run away. He must be sad that he had to log out, but his heart must be broken from being treated like that, even after transforming. As if realizing she shouldn't pity the enemy, she reminded herself not to be careless anyway. Then she turned to him and urged Singu, "We have to destroy him now. What if he awakens again?" Singu, full of anticipation, laughed loudly. "I'll probably get a huge essence." Aaron beside him had lost patience with this kind of overconfidence. "Are you kidding me?" He confidently affirmed this strategy will definitely work. He's eaten almost all the imps, so his next target will be. She beside him glanced over in astonishment. No way. From within the gate, ear-piercing sounds echoed. Gosang, holding his axe firmly, couldn't believe Bo Chun's betrayal. "I let you eat my subordinates because you were fighting that human. How dare you try to eat me?" As he spoke, his eyes blazed with fury. "In the name of the Goblin General, I will end you here." Singu outside didn't miss a single word. They must be fighting the boss now. Aaron became skeptical. Did he open the boss room door just like that? Bo Chun countered Gosang's axe strikes with fire attacks. The surrounding rocks and earth were also impacted by the blows. These sounds made Aaron unable to hold back her thoughts. She exclaimed, "Even out here I can feel them fighting. A boss is still a boss after all." Although this dungeon is easy, he wasn't idle and began to calculate his next steps. If he wins, he'll probably transform again. Hearing this, Aaron urged, "We have to hurry up." Singu Bo Chun opened his mouth wide, full of sharp teeth, confident that he could defeat the one before him. "I will kill you." Gosang didn't back down, deliberately taunting the small fry. I won't lose to a struggling spirit." Realizing the time was right, Singu rushed towards the door. Suddenly, chewing sounds replaced the earlier sounds of impact, making him pause. He could almost imagine what was happening inside. Maybe that spirit is eating the Goblin General. Then a loud roar suddenly echoed. Bo Chun's severed head was thrown and rolled on the ground. Gosang's entire body radiated a powerful aura as he gloated. "I will win, I will kill that player." Singu showed no fear, as if deliberately provoking him. "Look," he transformed. The girl beside him was trying to act cold, but her blushing face betrayed her own words. "I don't need to care anymore. Even if you die, I won't interfere." His eyes glanced over his words, seemingly trying to probe his sister's attitude. He must be stronger than that last one. As soon as he finished speaking, fire attacks rushed in from countless directions. The ground shattered from the impact of the strikes. Singu, with his agile movements, dodged to one side. He ducked low and successfully evaded another blow. His face showed no sign of wavering, but it's nothing. A strike hit the ground, which then shattered into small pieces from the newly appeared crack. Magic poured out endlessly from it. A pair of legs approaching made Singu immediately get into a fighting stance. Go-Sang was now blood-red all over. His body, now twice its previous size, appeared staring intently at him. This scene astonished Aaron. He transformed again. His voice was filled with confidence. "You won't dare to look down on me anymore." Contrary to what he expected, there was no fear at all. Singu was even more excited than before. "Yeah, what a pain that you've gotten so strong." Go-Sang, his whole body blood red, aggressively swung the axe in his hand down. Singu on the opposite side was already in a fighting stance, fearlessly looking straight at his opponent. The two attacks clashed head-on. The sound of metal hitting metal was ear-splitting. An invisible wave of power generated from the collision spread outwards. Looking at what just happened, Aaron didn't expect this opponent to be so strong. "Their powers are equal," fearing she might get hurt in the battle. He turned his head and warned Aaron back away. "You'll get hurt." As soon as he finished speaking, Singu's eyes flashed with surprise. Go-Sang's entire body, since who knows when, had been covered in flames. He still held the incredibly powerful axe in his hands. Aaron beside him was stunned. Thoughts raced through her mind. Flames are rising from his body. Did he just use magic to do that? In contrast, he scanned him over and felt this was nothing special. The flames are too weak. Singu attacked again, aiming his weapon straight at the creature, and charged forward. Knowing it was time to get serious with the fight, streams of energy began to glow on his shoulders as he focused his mana. Singu stomped one foot down hard. With that, his whole body flew into the air. He aimed straight for the center of Go-Sang's chest and struck. After the attack, he landed neatly. The creature's entire body lost balance and fell backward. Aaron was overjoyed. Singu. He turned his head slightly as if knowing what Aaron was about to say and reassured her, "I'm fine." Aaron was worried sick. "No, you're not fine." Only then did he realize. There was a flame burning fiercely on his shoulder. Fearing the wound would worsen, Aaron quickly healed her brother. Go-Sang refused to accept defeat. "You want to die?" Singu fearlessly leaped onto the creature. "This isn't enough to kill me. I might even level up from this." From his hand raised in mid-air, a constant stream of pale yellow power radiated out. Punishment. A mighty blow descended, severing Go-Sang's arm. As if unable to accept being defeated by a small player, he roared, "How did you do that?" His eyes were bloodshot as he voiced the questions in his mind. "You should have been burned to a crisp." "You don't even have armor on your legs." At that moment, Singu had already raised the weapon in his hand high. His face was emotionless. "I'm used to the pain." Not giving Go-Sang any more time to wonder, a powerful hammer blow descended. His head was obliterated by the strike. "I don't need to explain myself to others." Singu's back floated in the void. The more I tried to prove I was special, the more I had to brace myself not to be overwhelmed by that very strength. Immediately after, the screen displayed a notification: "Dungeon has been completed. An original evil spirit has been annihilated." A series of messages appeared. Special achievement, the only one to achieve it. Additional reward: player has received the passive skill fire resistance level 1. He skimmed through the notification and let out a disappointed sigh. "I thought I might get something else, but I got another special achievement instead." Then, as if suddenly remembering Go-Sang's ability, he looked towards his corpse on the ground. "However, that reward is perfect for this situation." Saying that, Singu showed a flicker of doubt. "I don't think the achievement and the reward are linked. It might just be a coincidence." The notification sound came again. Completion rank B. Additional reward: received 1 return sphere. The notifications continued. Return sphere, a magic item that allows escape from the dungeon. He immediately seemed to understand something and let out a sigh, figuring his completion level was low because he was the only one who hadn't killed all the monsters here, and Aaron was starting to lose patience. Aaron yelled at Singu but couldn't hide the concern in her words. "That's not the problem. Look at your shoulder, it's completely charred." He was as calm as if it were nothing serious. "I'm fine on the inside, and the outside will heal soon enough." so don't worry. She watched Singu's retreating back. With a pained heart, he spoke as if it were nothing. Just then, a notification rang out. Experience calculation complete. You have leveled up. His entire body felt as if a current of power was spreading through it, continuously emitting faint rays of light as he looked at his arm, which was covered in a network of luminous power lines. He remarked before, I'd never been injured, so leveling up only restored my stamina and mana. This time, however, I can actually feel the burn healing. Healed! Singu slowly opened his eyes, feeling every change in his body. The screen before him displayed the information, player Singu level 26. He put on a strong front for Aaron to see. Phew, see. Everything's all better now. She still hadn't calmed down. No, it's still not okay suddenly, as if remembering something. He turned his curious gaze toward her. You've been in a level 32 dungeon before, right? You must have seen things like this before. There was a hint of hesitation in Aaron's voice. Of course, I've seen much worse, but her words caught in her throat. She didn't agree with Singu's methods. I've just never seen any player who makes things worse for themselves by provoking their opponent. It wasn't an easy win for you either. You got burned hearing this. Singu smugly waved his finger back and forth in the air. I had already analyzed his skills, plus I knew I would never die. His tone couldn't hide his boastfulness. I also knew that completing the dungeon would heal my wounds. His face was now filled with delight. Although killing those weak goblins won't make me stronger. Aaron listened attentively, her eyes glued to Singu. His jet-black eyes seemed to light up. She realized it was the first time she had seen him so excited. A flicker of sorrow appeared in the depths of her eyes. His eyes were shining so brightly he clearly enjoyed that battle. Images from her memory suddenly flooded back, the times he had rushed in to save her appearing vividly. Maybe I've never seen the real him because he was always strong from the very beginning. In the past, Singu faced his enemies without mercy. He didn't enjoy overpowering his opponents. Aaron mused, her gaze fixed on a distant point. Despite being born with superhuman strength, perhaps it's because he was born with it. Singu's sturdy back was turned to her as he silently watched the weapons being forged. He must have always been waiting for danger, something that would help him grow stronger. As she thought this, Aaron couldn't hide her worried expression. If it meant getting stronger, Singu wouldn't hesitate to throw himself into even more terrible battles. Her brow furrowed. Still lost in her thoughts, she concluded that while he was brave, he was also incredibly reckless. After a long moment, Aaron suddenly spoke with a tone of helplessness. Fine, as long as you stay alive, that's all that matters. The image of her small body in free fall through the open air and high above her, the colossal sky castle, suddenly rushed back into her mind. I just realized how different we are. Maybe I was logged out of the sky castle because I'm not like you. As if fearing the worst, her tone grew somber. But please never gamble with your life. If you die, I don't know what would happen to me. These words moved Singu. Sensing her feelings for him, he gave a small smile as if to reassure her. He put on a resolute expression. I'll keep that in mind. Nothing is more pointless than dying while trying to get stronger. Go Sang's corpse still lay motionless on the ground. From a distance, Singu's voice echoed, "Let's go loot the monster." Aaron didn't hesitate either. Okay, let's go. A loud explosion echoed as Singu finally finished off Bo Chun. He immediately collected his reward, a stack of cash totaling $200,000. Along with it were a red stone and another red monster essence. Singu sighed with a bored expression. He still couldn't understand why making money was this easy. Just then, Aaron walked over and stopped him. Hold on, Singu. She moved closer to look at the stone in his hand. Is this... After confirming, Aaron joyfully said to Singu, it's a unique essence. He was still bewildered, not understanding what she meant. What seeing his confusion, she patiently began to explain. It's an essence that has a special ability and stores information. High-level monsters or low-level bosses rarely drop them. Then Aaron suggested you should offer it to the altar. Singu agreed immediately. I was already planning on it. He stepped forward and placed the unique essence on the enhancement altar. Instantly, a blinding flash of light appeared right after. Singu looked at what he received with some surprise. This isn't a treasure and it's not a consumable item. It turned out the item Singu received was a fire enhancement scroll. Fire attribute rank D+. He scoffed and spoke so it wasn't a random reward but was predetermined from the start. But Singu couldn't help but feel a tinge of regret. If I had known, I would have just let that vengeful spirit devour all those imps. Aaron spoke up to reassure him. I know you're used to D double plus rank, but magic and enchantments are a different matter. A D plus rank fire attribute enhancement is still good nonetheless. Singu was still curious. So if an attribute is enhanced, does the damage increase? His question made her hesitate. But if you face a fire-type enemy, the damage will be reduced. Or sometimes you might not deal any damage at all. Aaron didn't forget to add a word of caution, so don't make any rash decisions. However, before she could finish her sentence, she saw Singu tinkering with something. What are you doing? In no time, he had crafted a new weapon called the Black Wolf's Claw rank D+, with an attack power of 500 to 1,100 and the ability to poison on hit. The power of this hammer was also quite significant. This hammer carries the power of a black wolf's 2 front legs. It is very powerful but difficult to wield due to its weight and has been imbued with a potent poison ability. Singu laughed heartily as he swung the hammer back and forth. The attack power increased too. These enchanted items are amazing. Aaron, watching from the side, could only sigh helplessly. I knew he would do that. Singu even tried to comfort her, which took her by surprise. Don't worry so much, I'm very determined now. If the fire enhancement doesn't work, I'll just use my fists. However, Aaron still wasn't convinced. They'll probably be covered in fire just like that spirit was. Singu smiled calmly. That's why I learned fire resistance. Hearing this, Aaron could only scoff and curse inwardly. What a smart mouth. She also began to make plans for herself. I need to get my healing and holy magic back as soon as possible. Both of them were training diligently. Aaron thought to herself, if I could have used my shield, then Singu wouldn't have been swallowed by those flames like that.